Hey, 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 what's up?
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. And let me see here. I'm trying to get set up. I apologize. We got another week down in the books. Thank you all so much for coming and spending some time with us this Friday afternoon, a little bit later, just in case we stay longer. But thank you and welcome to everybody for coming. We're going to have another good discussion about generative AI. And I'm just so grateful to be here. There's been so many spaces about this topic. And there's just so much to talk about. So hopefully ours we can have a really good constructive conversation today. And I'm looking forward to hearing from everybody. And hopefully you guys will be able to take something away from this. But I wanted to announce we had like last week was just so epic. I haven't even gone through all the notes yet. So there's still so much to go through. We talked about so many things. If anybody wants to write about it, please feel free. But that was great. And it just kind of set the stage for this and future spaces that we have. But um, I just wanted to say thank you. And I started launching a newsletter, and I just want to announce that that's like a major accomplishment for me, my goodness. But I'm launching that, so you can sign up for a wait list or whatever, and I'll be launching that a weekly newsletter starting next week. And if you sign up, there will be a free gift. I'm going to put together an AI art toolkit, basically with most of my favorite things, a bunch of art generators, prompt generators, different resources and things that I use a lot, some of the different image converting, and editing software or links to that. So I'll have that coming up for you guys soon. So once a week we'll be doing that, and then we'll be talking about it in the space. And I want to have some competitions. Drayson, Carvin, you made me think about that with Dreambox, but I was thinking maybe we could have some weekly competitions for different designs, and then we can kind of feature that in the space. We can feature it in the newsletter and just tweet about it. So maybe we can get a collaboration going for some other kind of prize. But I hope that we can do something like that because there's just so much talent out there. I love it when everybody responds to the different challenges. And Linus, thank you for keeping me on my toes with in just coming up with great different design challenges, and just to see what we all come up with. It's so wonderful. But it's going to be, you can subscribe now. Eventually I'll probably add like a paid tier to it, but for now, of course, it's free, and I'm just happy that I can do something to give back to the community. But Taylor is my co-host, and she's going to help remind me of some of the housekeeping things. And then we have such a lineup of speakers, and I just appreciate everybody that came. But go ahead, Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Heather, so much for bringing us all here together. It's magical to be here in this room with you guys and see all of the amazing voices and creative talent and builders, technologists in the room with us. For those of you who were in last week's space, it was pretty epic indeed. That's a good way to describe it. We had not one, but two spaces out of that after having a little technical blip halfway through. And it still was just one of the most like fascinating, in-depth conversations that I've been a part of in these spaces so far. So I really think that this is the start of something exciting that we're all bringing together the same, these voices, and we're all learning this. So many of us are creatives, entrepreneurs, product builders, build in public-ers, if that's a thing. But I think that from here, it only goes up. So I do know that we need to start branding these things on Fridays. So we're going to need a title for it. I think maybe we should put together a poll or something of what we should call these, because it really is like a community driven space experience for all of us. We wouldn't be doing these without all of the incredible voices that are here to contribute to it. So it only fits that we all decide on a name together. We were thinking the AI Hive. I hope I'm allowed to say that, Heather. The Hive, something along those lines. So we'll put some options maybe down in a poll. But if you have any ideas or any thoughts, feel free to drop those down in the replies. And Heather, you mentioned your amazing newsletter, which I, for one, cannot wait to dive into. We've been kind of collaborating on the content strategy behind that, behind the newsletter, just kind of over the last couple weeks. And let me tell you, having seen kind of firsthand what it's about and what Heather's going to be doing every week, it is pure value. So you're getting actionable tips and news, the latest tools and trends around AI. And the thing I love most, Heather, about what you do and your message, and your content, is that it resonates with people of all different levels. Like, you could be the most experienced AI tech in the world, or you could be a creator just starting out, trying to find ways to make use of all of this incredible technology to push your visuals forward. So lots of stuff that kind of spans the gamut in that, and I can't wait. So yeah, I guess I pinned it up here to the top. So you can hit that link in the space and subscribe if you want, but it's only going up from here. And yeah, I think I'll kick it back over to you, Heather, if you wanted to add anything on to that before we get into it with some of the guests.
No, I just want to say I appreciate it and thank you all so much. And please use your emojis and let me know if how things are going with what I'm saying or any of the speakers, to just kind of gauge how the conversation is. And I'm so touched that people are find such value in these spaces or in my content, because it is like Taylor said. I just want I think I'd like to have everybody have an equal opportunity to have access to these kind of tools. And whether or not you have experience or not, I don't have artistic experience really, but to be able to create something it's an amazing thing. And I think that we all deserve that ability to do that. So, and we also all deserve to kind of be able to speak about it without worrying about people getting upset, because what we're doing is trying to create content and create things that we love. So I just want to have somewhere where everybody can come together. It's so great to see all these founders and developers and influencers, creators in here all together. It's just amazing. I never thought that I would be able to sit in a room and talk to people like that have this capacity and this experience level. So thank you so much, everybody. So I'll quit rambling, and I wanted to say what we're going to talk about today is just different things that are updates and new things that are happening in the generative AI space. And I'm not going to stick to a really strict agenda. I think we can just kind of like take the conversation, because we have several guests that we wanted to hear from, and then also people that we can that can contribute to the conversation, like Natalia, Amar, Linus. Thank you so much. AP's here. Angry Penguin, he's going to be talking about some of the open source projects and things like that. Linus has a broad ability throughout all kinds of different things with generative AI. And Natalia with her machine learning background, all that. And Amar, he's out there putting together all kinds of interesting projects that involve quite a few different types of technology. But we have Midas here. We're talking about Leonardo. Drayson and Carbon are here to tell us about what's going to make our dreams come true with Dreambox, how we're going to actually get to make our AI art into physical products. We have, Aaron's here to talk about that amazing tool, the background remover. I appreciate that RemBG. And we also I found out about a new product today that is pretty interesting. It is Viewtopia. So Bali is here to talk about that later on. But I appreciate everybody. I'm going to try to get to, and if I left your name out, please. I apologize. Kyber. I'm sorry. Scott Stoke Builder here. Thank you guys so much for coming. I use Kyber all the time. Bilal, I appreciate you coming through, because you have a heck of a YouTube channel. Thank you so much. And my friend Zhang is my inspiration for AI. Matt Wolf, thank you so much. Future Tools. And I'm trying to just holler out everybody, all my friends, Justine, Jane, Asher, thank you so much for coming. And Chris, Richard, everybody. We've got so many friends here. But what I'll do is Leonardo has some new things happening. The text to texture. I'd like to see if Midas could tell us a little bit about that. I'd really appreciate. And what we're going to do for the speakers, like once we kind of go through everybody, you don't have to wait for your hand, raise your hand or anything like that. If once we're done, we can just go ahead and kind of move it along and whatever. We'll just see how that goes. But Midas, can you tell us what's happening with the updates for Leonardo AI and when it'll be available and what's up with the text to texture feature.
Hey guys, yeah, thank you very much for the invite here, Heather and Taylor. Nice to see you. Nice to be among all these great influencers, persons, builders, creators, founders. And yeah, I'm representing Leonardo. I'm their chief marketing officer, and we're gonna be delivering very, very soon this text to texture, which is created by our research and development team. Basically, what it does is that you provide a 3D model, and with Leonardo, you can create the texture and you can just apply it to that model. So that's gonna be. We don't have like a exact date for the release, but if you want to just like sign up on Leonardo's website, you're gonna be like one of the first to be able to do this. We're also have several updates that we've been adding to the website, which is kind of like a control net, but it's not like the open source. I mean, it's not the uh, like the ones that is licensed for only academic. Like we created our own kind of like technology for that. Because I just want to say that shout outs to Ethan Smith, which is the developer or one of the developers on Leonardo. That guy created Matproc Diffusion too, and that dude is amazing. Like he has been just creating new stuff for Leonardo. We're also gonna have like some kind of like instruct pix to pix adaptation that we've been also developing. It's a little bit stronger than the one that is currently available, and the API access. So those will be like the news we're gonna have in a couple of I would say like a couple of weeks, hopefully. And yeah, because I know some people in here, like Dave Craig, he was asking for API access for the Discord, like creating a Discord bot that you could use Leonardo's features on Discord servers. I know a couple of guys that want to build some stuff using API. So yeah, that's pretty much what we've been working on, what we've been doing, and I'm super excited to see all the advances in the AI space because like each week we have something new appearing. Like we can see the research papers coming along, and suddenly, it's kind of like this arms race that everybody's trying to deliver and ship new features. So yeah, super excited about it. I'm pretty sure you guys, the ones that are creating art, AI art, are gonna really enjoy this, and it's something that I can't wait to to release because I know it's going to be a very different game for like people trying to make art, people trying to make games, which is our basically our target market. Like we really want to provide the tools for game developers, game studios to just create new stuff in a faster way because we know that around I think it's like 45 50% of the process of making a game. Usually it takes a lot of time if you're doing the art and not using like open assets or like free assets. It usually takes a lot of time. Myself, I tried to develop some games back in the days when I was younger, and it was crazy. Like I don't have any artistic qualities, and and I can see how these tools, which is one of the reasons that I joined Leonardo, is that I can see all these tools helping people just make their ideas come to life, right? Because I think like most people here just want to create new stuff. They want to express themselves, and AI, at least for me, is what has been giving me the possibility to do all this stuff. So yeah, super excited. I don't want to take more time, but we'll be talking if something else comes along in my brain right now.
Thank you so much. No, there's just so much there too to talk about. And Natalia, did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So my question is, so first of all, I'm a big fan of Leonardo. I've been using it for some time. I discovered it on Twitter, but I just feel like you guys seem to be a company that's sort of enshrined in mystery. I would love to know a little bit more about, what is the origin story? How did you get started? where are you? The space is so interesting and so there's just so much going on at the moment. It's so dynamic. I would love to, just understand a little bit more about, like, you gave some context around games, but just like, what is the origin story? Where are you guys? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. That's actually a great question because I've been talking with the founder. The founder is called JJ Fiasson, and he's a founder of a game studio. Um, he has like three titles in development, Rainy Studios. So the story goes like this: he wanted to just speed up the process because he started seeing, like, try to make a game is not as easy as it seems. He started creating all the assets, like hiring artists. And usually, the process for creating an asset is that you ask the artist to make some sketches, the artist gets back to you, and you're like, yeah, but make these changes and all, and this and that. And it usually takes weeks for that to happen. So he's also an artist in the AI space for a long time. I think he started with disco diffusion or something like that, and he got the idea, like, hey, what if we do some kind of like AI stuff? Everything is happening so fast, perhaps this can start helping us to just speed up the process. And that's how Leonardo was born. Like, he wanted to create more assets in a faster way, assist his artists to just like iterate continuously on the process and be able to deliver the games in a shorter period of time. So he created he hired a couple of people because Leonardo is completely bootstrapped, and he just like put all his money for this. He started like hiring a lot of people to from the early machine learning days, from the early disco diffusion times, to just like work on the technology. And that's how like Leonardo started to grow, like, right? Like, he wanted to make all this stuff to happen, and he got the idea, like, hey, what happens, like, this actually solved a problem, which is one of the main reasons that got me super bullish into the whole Leonardo stuff, because I was like, okay, so he's trying to solve a problem that he already had, and that's how he started like growing this stuff. He saw the opportunity, like, hey, perhaps we can provide this access to other game developers and start making a tool for all of them. And that's how, yeah, like, that's your origin story of Leonardo. He started to, get a lot of people from back in the days, and yeah, just integrate a lot of the technologies that are already appearing, and also researching like new stuff that people um, can like, like people want, or people are needing for their game studios and game development needs.
That's amazing.
And yeah,
Yeah, I just want to say
and we're
thank you. I'm so
thanks.
impressed that you're bootstrapped, and I'm also impressed at how quickly you're executing, because I could see changes constantly. And I did like a little bit of a comparison with some of the similar tools in the market, and you guys are just kicking ass. So thanks for sharing. But I'll let you continue. This is super interesting for me.
Oh, thanks, Natalia. And yeah, we're located. Well, the founding team is located in Australia, and we also have people all over the world. Like, I myself, I'm in Mexico City. We have another guy from marketing in Argentina. We have the designer is in France, and so we're all over the world trying to, doing the remote work thing, and just trying to get the best people working on this. I know, I think Ethan, which is this guy that created Math Rock Diffusion back in the days, he's in somewhere along the west coast of the United States. So yeah, all over the world, and yeah, it's quite an interesting place to be working at right now.
I bet it is because there's so much happening, and it's like you're right there. When we're finding out about it, you just found out about it not long before, but you probably have a lot of secrets you know about too. So I'm excited because yeah, Leonardo is something else. It really changed the game for so many different options. I like all the editing tools on there. That's just amazing that you can remove the background right there. You can do the image to image while you don't have to leave the platform, and the new Canvas tool is just awesome. There's so many models. It's on there. It's just amazing. I really enjoy it. I wanted
Thanks, Heather.
to. I know I appreciate it, and we'll probably have to come back to you shortly. I was going to let Drayson and Carbon, if you guys can tell us a little bit about Dreambox, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, totally. So happy to be here, and I have so many good questions for this panel too. I think there's so many exciting products being built. Yeah, so with Dreambox, we basically like I started using AI in Midjourney last summer, but from the get-go, I wanted immediately to create all the even when it was back in the day like a little bit janky and the stuff wasn't as crazy photorealistic as it is now. I still was like, oh my God, I want this action figure. I want this plushie. I want this piece of jewelry in my hands. So that seed was planted a while ago. And my background is as a product designer. I design software for number of years and also do physical fabrication. My other venture does jewelry design, which is called ARC. And it really was a kind of like, oh my God, there's so much here that we need to kind of bring to life. And I was like, I need this product. So if someone was going to build it, I was like, hey, I'm just putting together my manufacturing network and Drayson's network made so much sense. And yeah, we already have made a lot of progress. We're just working literally night and day, all hours of the clock to get things started. But we have our plushie vertical almost up and running. We just ordered our first kind of test demos of those. So you'll be able to place orders for stuffed animals, which is super exciting. And then jewelry soon right after that. So being able to design your own pendants and rings and put that out there and be able to do custom orders on that immediately right after. And then there's a lot of other stuff. We already have kind of handbags on the way. So we're going to be adding these verticals little piece by piece. And at first we're kind of using the Tesla model just because it's kind of the only way to do it is like start with the one-off, a little bit higher end pieces would be custom completely from the ground up. And basically that will work as you can submit an AI piece of artwork or product, and then we will source it for you and we'll find the best manufacturer, send you back a quote. And if that's approved, we'll actually put that into manufacturing. But longer term, we really want to kind of democratize and open things up. So we're actually going to be hopefully a month or two from now, start our first kind of miniature Kickstarter campaigns for different products. So you'll be able to submit a product and then have the community like vote and actually buy the MOQ or the minimum order quantity and get that into production. So it'll be really cool. These like little miniature community oriented Kickstarter campaigns to get those products into production. And then Drayson, you want to talk about community stuff a little bit?
Yeah, 100%. And thanks for speaking to everything you said there, Ivan. Great summary of what's coming up. And yeah, Dreambox is really community focused. And I'm someone that's always been very, very amazing at building communities, bringing people together because I'm so passionate. My background is in artistry, like making music, DJing house parties, house clubs all over Miami, like with awesome celebrities and stuff like that. So my background is very, very creative. I don't really take I guess you could say, the ordinary approach to building a startup or a business. In fact, Dreambox started more as like a really awesome passion project. And I just wanted to make a Discord, a community of people who were like, hey, let's all collab, let's trade creative ideas. You know, I see people who are going to make AI art, AI videos, AI music. You know, how can we all bring this in one place and just kind of cross-pollinate all that creativity and create something really magical? And that's kind of how Dreambox started coming to life. And yeah, that's the real core of Dreambox. I think our biggest moat is going to be the community. It's the specialists, the designers, you know, the artists in there creating everything from the ground up and just working very closely together. You know, we don't really want to take the Amazon approach where it's like we just get cheap products from China and manufacture in mass scale. We really don't want to make quality products. We want to hire like local designers, like specialized craftsmen, men and women, and just really bring these things to life.
Yeah, and I'll actually say on the heels of that, that really is our motivation. I think one of the best things about AI is I think we're going to experience like there's so many implications that we don't know where it's going to affect yet, and I have a really good feeling we're going to experience this revolution of product design. I think there's so many people that are just so creative and have had creativity kind of like in their souls from a young age, but never have had a way to kind of like let it out because, like it or not, it takes a lot of. I'm a believer that anyone can be an artist and can become a really good artist. It's not just a talent you're born with. It is learned, but we don't have the luxury of spending years and going to art school. So this tools allows us to, if you had like an idea to create some kind of Pokemon when you're a kid or anything like that. I mean, for me, I'm like all of these ideas from when I was younger, like boiling up in me. Oh my God, I can create this and create that. So this is going to be a revolution in product design, and all of our products are designed by a very slim amount of people. Like just looking around my room, right, like my conference room right now, the chair, the computer, the desk, all of these people, it's all designed by a very slim subset of people who are very talented, but they go to art school and they specialize in industrial design, right? So um, all of these things are created by like a limited amount of minds, and now we're going to crowdsource creativity and product design. So all of these this like next wave of product designs are going to be and like product lines of toys and jewelry and everything and shoes are going to come from the minds of all of us. You don't have to go to school for years and years and years. It's going to be super democratized. So it's really exciting. And I also think it's a great way for physical builders to get involved. And like Jason said, we're not going to be trying to just mass manufacture all these things. We want to pair, if you have an idea for a shoe or a hat or a plushie, we want to pair you with small batch, like Etsy style
All right, is the sound down for anyone else?
Oh,
Oh,
now I can
you got
hear
it?
you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey guys,
Maybe
Yeah.
sorry,
lost his...
I got my Bluetooth popped around, so I got cut off.
Okay.
Oh.
So it might have been a long
We're all like,
pause.
I got
Oh man,
scared.
I thought I lost signal. I was like,
Oh gosh, sorry about that.
Oh, me too.
because I was seeing emojis react, and I didn't.
Sorry, but I got a dang call, and then it pulled it to my laptop and everything. But yeah, I was just wrapping it up. Our kind of summary. Obviously happy to answer any questions. I don't know if what the last thing that got cut off was, but pretty much was just at the end of it.
Can I just ask a question really quick too before? And I think Natalia, sorry, you have your hand up too. I mean, it's not really a question, I guess, but I do. What you said about product design really resonated with me because we are in this paradigm shift of product design right now, especially like at the intersection of massive creative technology overflow every which way you look. And then there's also on the other side of it, it's like efficiency and accessibility, things like no code or low code solutions paired with all of this like monumental power that we can harness around these AI tools. It's like it's totally shifting the way that products are coming to market, like especially SaaS products as we know it. So I was just wondering if anyone can touch on that. Like is anyone who's here speaking not a developer, coder, or traditional heavy product designer, product marketer that could like actually touch on some of this? Because I would love to know. But Natalia, I also want to get you up here because you had your hand up.
Yeah, let's maybe tackle that one first, and then I can ask my question.
Robert Scoble, welcome back.
Love the show. Keep going.
Did you want to say a few words on that?
No, I'm just listening.
All right. Well, whoever wants to chime in, and you guys feel free for anyone who's speaking, like no need to wait to be called on as long as you have the mic and you want to add on to something. Just wait until there's an opportunity to say your part or raise your hand, and then we'll just run around the room in that order.
And I'll just add real fast that I'm trying to, I guess there's a limit to how many mics we can have open at one time. So if I pull your mics, it's not to be rude. I'm trying to like take some and reassign them to the next person. And it keeps rejecting it. So I do apologize. And if you're speaking and it pops out, then we're in trouble. But I'm trying to get everybody covered there. Asher, thanks for joining us. And I want to hear from everybody, but I guess we will continue going around the room a little bit, if that's okay, because I do want to hear from Kyber from Stoke Builder. He wanted to, I use it so much for animation. I'd love to hear from you.
What's up, Heather?
Hey.
Thank you so much for having me up. First of all, I just want to give you a round of applause for pulling this together for everyone. You've been such a strong supporter from day one for us, and you've been posting your art, which has been really incredible. So I really appreciate your support so far. Can I ask you, like, how did you actually hear about us? Because you were probably one of the first to start posting about us, and like, I remember sharing your tweets in our own Slack internally, and we were all so hyped about it. But I'm just so curious.
I think somebody reached out to me and just asked if I was aware of it because they had seen some of my visual, like different AI images. So I just said, "Oh, I'll give it a try and see." And then I had a couple people try it. Javi Lopez tried it, and I think Jordan Parker tried it, and they were kind of like, "Oh, well, it works pretty fast," you know. So after about a week, I tried it, and then I just fell in love because I was able to do so much with it, and I was just amazed. I'm amazed at how Kyver, it's so adaptive. It seems like you don't have to put much into the text description, and it basically figures out. Like I think it was like a cat that was floating in the ocean, and like a rainbow colored ocean, and it turned it into a tiger because it was kind of like a striped kind of looking cat, and it was just so beautiful. Like I didn't say, "Oh, there's a cat floating in the ocean," but Kuiper was able to figure out. I mean, however that works, I was blown away. So I appreciate that you've added on more models, and like different styles, not smalls, but styles, and I just love it. And the more people that I see using it, it's just it's amazing. You guys have the sound. You can upload music too now, right?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. We've come a long way. I think even from launching, like I think it was only 7 weeks ago that we started. I think it'd be helpful to just sort of explain our origin story a little bit before I dive into some of what we're building right now and sort of what the future looks like. My co-founder is OK Sammy. That's his Twitter handle is it's OK Sammy, and he's actually a super talented developer, but also an equally talented music producer. And so, me and him, we've been working on startups for a while. Our previous, before we sort of shifted to AI stuff, we were actually working on some interactive music, sort of beat pads in the Web3 space. So we've been hacking at this for a while. And I think, Taylor, you asked us earlier, are people up here not engineers? I'm actually not an engineer. I was an IP lawyer for years before this. And it was really this music thing that connected me and my co-founder. And we started thinking about, just interesting things to build. And, it's sort of like I guess a later career transition for me too, but I found a lot of passion in working on something that, I've always enjoyed it since I was a kid. But for my co-founder, OK Sammy, he kind of like, he had these amazing soundscapes that were very theatrical and very, I don't know, there was just almost like a narrative landscape to it that was just beyond just like beats and music. And he always wanted to create visuals for his music that matched his imagination, right? And we were sort of crawling our way out of, he was crawling out of his way out of college, so he didn't have a huge budget. And so, once AI sort of images dropped last summer, immediately, like, our eyes just were on this, and we started hacking into seeing what we can do with videos. And so, long story short, we started sending some of these video samples to different record labels just to see, like, is there an interest amongst musicians to try to play around with, generative videos, audio reactive videos. Could we make Spotify canvases? Could we make visualizers, lyric videos? And we sent it to Republic Records, and it was just sort of a stroke of fate. But within 48 hours, Kid Cudi's team was about to launch Intergalactic, the album. and they asked us, can you guys pull together visualizers for the album for YouTube? And we need it in 24 hours. And so, we all looked at each other and just spent, 2 nights just really hacking away at it. And eventually we delivered the assets and they loved it. And that was just like a light bulb in our heads that, okay, we need to pay attention to this. And so, fast forward to last December, back from our Web3 days, Mike Shinoda is actually one of our advisors. And, he kind of started looking at our tech and he was saying, can you guys actually help us with a music video? And of course we said yes. We paired with an animation studio when we actually released Linkin Park's new song Lost, which was actually a recorded song from 20 years ago that they dug out of their archives. But we worked with an animation studio to make this music video. And so we started taking a lot of the technology that we used in that music video and we started throwing it into Kyber, and that's when we sort of started releasing the product. The product that you see today has a lot of the technology that we've been using in sort of our studio productions. I think what really makes us unique and, not just from like a marketing, like positioning standpoint, but I really truly think that because all of our team, they really are artists. Like there's a different way that we think about how to implement the tech to enable other artists to make beautiful things. And it's honestly been shocking to me the types of things that have been generated with Kyber. Obviously, we had our eyes towards music videos, but I've seen people, redesign their logos, animate little short clips for all sorts of different applications, which has been really eye-opening for us as well. What do we have coming in the future? We have, you guys have probably seen the audio reactivity. You can upload a song up to 4 minutes and enter in a prompt, and it'll actually, you can direct the camera movements, but it'll actually create a video in that length. What's coming up next? We're obviously looking at other video things. So, obviously ControlNet has been really interesting to us. Video restylization is something that we used heavily in the Linkin Park video, but it was a very, honestly pretty tedious manual process. So to productize that, to be able to let everyone use it is quite a technical challenge. But that's definitely something that's top of mind. We're also coming through with a timeline feature. People have been asking desperately to go from prompt to prompt with different camera movements to different parts of a video. And so, we've been going around the clock trying to design the UX for that. Lots of other things that, I'd love to share, but I don't think I'm allowed to yet. So hopefully that's enough to get you guys a picture of what we're doing.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
It's awesome.
So I love it. Matt, did you want to say anything? Since you have access to so many new things with Future Tools. I don't know if you wanted to ask anybody a question, and then we can kind of continue going around. Matt? Oh, I don't hear. Uh-oh.
I don't hear him.
Unless that's me. Or Linus, I know you weren't feeling well too. So did you want to ask any questions?
Yeah, hi. I'm sorry, I'm catching a bit of a cold, so my voice might be breaking down. Yeah, I'm super excited about Kyber. I think I included you guys in a thread yesterday or the day before yesterday. My head is a bit busted, but at the moment. But yeah, I'm kind of interested in where you see yourself take kind of more the controls that you were mentioning in terms of camera movement, and what are you guys seeing and hearing from your community? What is people want to do with the tool?
Yeah, it's a great question. As a builder, customer listening is such an art as well, because you hear people ask for customer feedback, and you don't just implement everything, right? You want to hear what the underlying problem is and see if you can come up with a unique solution. And I forgot who mentioned this earlier, but someone said something about the product design space for AI is dramatically different, right? I think the V1 of a lot of these products, it's oh, well, let's just use a video editing UX and try to make that AI. But, from my perspective, and I use this analogy a lot with our team, it's AI is almost like an alien, and we're trying to figure out how to talk to it, right? And it's the UX that we did in on our phones and our computers is probably not the most intuitive way to be talking to AI. So yeah, so to your point, I think when we release audio reactivity in longer videos, you can only control one camera movement through the whole thing. So it'll pan left for like 3 minutes, right? It'll zoom in for 3 minutes. And it's really interesting because, obviously the diffusion will hallucinate things that are actually very visually intriguing. But okay, yeah, it could get a little monotonous to have one camera movement, right? So, but then, how do we present that in a product? Is it really just a timeline? Do you enter the times and when you change the prompts and change the camera movements? And how does that sort of timeline feature apply to future sort of products? That's actually quite challenging. And so, we've taken some of that feedback and, we kind of hear what they're saying. They want more controls, but how do you not turn this into sort of a really inaccessible video editing tool? That's not really what we want to be, right? Like AI lowers the bar. We shouldn't be making different sort of things that raise sort of the complexity where people can't approach it. So,
I totally get that.
Yeah, so I'm kind of in a place we're kind of in the place right now where we're trying to figure out what that looks like and how that might scale to what, longer term. If you're, once this tech advances, I mean, I guarantee you, right, the pace that we've seen video change in even a matter of weeks, a year from now, you're going to be directing full on videos with consistency and coherence. What does that UX look like? There's really nothing comparable that we've seen yet that addresses that. So, yeah, it's a fun but interesting and very big challenge.
Yeah, I want to hear Bill Wall's answer to this. So I'm going to let you speak, Bill Wall.
Hey, thanks, Linus. Great to see you. This is a fascinating discussion. I think Builder Stoke, by the way, awesome name. Let's build the Stoke around this stuff. And, I think it's this, you definitely don't want to build the Adobe Premiere. You want to build more like the TikTok, like video editing experience, right? And like, what does that paradigm look like? Honestly, I've personally been torn on this. I totally agree. There's all this like kind of legacy interaction models that we just tend to inherit every time a new innovation comes out. And let's not do that this time. But at the same time, I love ControlNet, right? Like you mentioned, y'all are looking at ControlNet style functionality. Like that to me is interesting because it becomes this middle ground where you can say, take a traditional like Blender like tool. And okay, Blender is hard, but maybe you could even take like some sort of web-based 3D tool where you can like manipulate this like you would a video game world or like a mobile app and like frame the camera using interaction models that people are familiar with. Now, the saying I like to say is like, let's not invent new stuff, unless we absolutely need to. Like people know how to open a doorknob, so let's give them a goddamn doorknob, right? Just because it's VR, we don't have to reinvent everything. So I think there's this like middle ground there. But what I find exciting about ControlNet and seeing what people are doing with it, with everything from like the dimensionality of a space to full body IK pose and, normal maps and, edge maps and all these things to just exert control and bring a little bit more artistic specificity. Like it's super exciting to me. And so I don't know how exactly that's going to pan out, but those are the two ends of the continuum is like, what are the paradigms people are used to? How do we leverage that to allow people to like interface with this alien creature, as you said, which I think is a very astute analogy. But also, let's not hold ourselves to the past way too much. What are going to be the net new functionalities that come out? So I'm excited to see how this evolves. And I'm kind of curious if other folks have thoughts on this and how ControlNet changes things.
So I just want to speak a little bit to the UX part of this. Like obviously my background in design, I'm with you, Stoke Builder, that this is a new paradigm and it's really tricky to understand where things are going. I think we can look at like Descript is a good example of like how we can take arcane video editing that could be like extremely convoluted and has a lot of controls and make something very beautiful and easy to work with. And then we can see something like Tome and like a mix of Spline and Tome and Descript to be like a fairly interesting direction to look at when it comes to facilitating like 3D, like or what you're doing with Kyber essentially. I'm not saying that like there is a golden ticket in there, but it's very interesting at least to see like some of these new tools and what they're doing and how they're kind of breaking convention, but breaking convention and creating better UX in the end for what the use case is. I mean, I wouldn't use Descript to kind of do a motion picture, like a AAA motion picture production, but who knows? Maybe in the future that's more of the interface that we will have because the tooling the black box around everything will be so much more powerful. So I'm going to leave it to the next one.
I just want to make a super quick comment on this, which is to sort of the way I think about framing this particular discussion is your product a product that has bolt-on AI? Meaning, you're using the usual UX paradigms and you're adding AI in some way that makes it better for the user, versus are you doing AI first products, which means innovating on the UX and building something brand new, which is the really exciting part of this. And just for everyone, for me, the context was I worked on Facebook AI, right? And suddenly we had TikTok come, and TikTok is the perfect example of an AI first product that has AI at its core, and that's the value add, and that's where everything became disruptive for the company. And so I'm just really fascinated by this question and how it's going to develop and what we're going to do, because I do think I'm a firm believer and have a hypothesis that the AI is just we're going to have to invent new AI paradigms for working with AI, and what that's going to look like, I think nobody knows. But yeah, I'll close it off with that.
Yeah, can I just add one thing to this? I think I think what's interesting to me as just someone just observing my community right now, we obviously we're from California, right? Like our network is all Americans, but the vast majority of our users are actually from India, and we saw a huge uptick in Eastern Europe too. And I have to credit someone on our team, our designer. He mentioned something the other day, which was 60% of the internet, 60% of the world's population right now has access to the internet, which is a shocking number, right? And what percentage of those people can actually pick up Adobe Premiere and figure it out in a few days to tell the stories that they want? They can't do it. And this technology is clearly lowering the bar on, sort of taking your inspirations and making it real, at multiple orders of magnitude, right? Not just one or two. And so I feel like for us, at least, there's always going to be a place for these complex UXs for really high end productions. There's always going to be a place for that. But I also feel like there's almost an obligation for the builders in this space to think about how do these people with just a phone somewhere be able to come up with something that they can be very expressive about and really tell a story that might have the reach to reach people all over the world. So that's sort of a core principle that I think at least our company we're really focusing on.
I want to add a quick question about plugins for both you and Midas. I think not to go in the opposite direction, but as a I went to school for animation, and I would kill to get your product into as a plugin in After Effects, and same thing for Midas. Are you guys looking at the UV texturing tool to get into Blender? Those things would be also really huge for the pro community and stuff like that, because I've actually dealt that with CapCut, for instance. I love their auto projection kind of 3D zoom tool that they create a mesh from a photo, but it drives me nuts because I have to export. If I want one shot like that, I have to export it, so I think there's a huge opportunity to plug it cross pollinate with plugins and stuff like that as well. So just curious if you guys are looking at that.
Yeah, I'll go first on this one. It's an interesting, also sort of philosophical question for us, because we are sort of still looking at musicians as our primary sort of user, even though obviously it has huge impacts on video production and all that stuff too. But for us, it's we're actually more focusing on that musician user profile. So our integrations look more can we partner with a company like CD Baby or DistroKid or places where these independent musicians are sort of launching their songs and potentially have a way to create assets there. So that's kind of where our mind's at right now. I think long term, if this restylization and these sort of bigger picture video tools are super easy to use and intuitive, I'm happy to explore that stuff, but it's just not top of mind for us right now.
Oh, go ahead. AP, did you have something you wanted to say?
Oh, I was going to segue. So if anybody else has anything else on this.
Matt, were you able to get your mic up?
Yeah, I think my mic's working now. Can everybody hear me?
Thank you. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to pass it to Midas real quick because I think that last question he was asking about Leonardo as well inside of things like Photoshop and Adobe Premiere and that sort of thing. So curious to hear Midas's thoughts on that before we start switching subjects.
Good idea. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so we're in talks with a couple of people from Unity and Unity developers to create plugins and that kind of stuff. But yeah, nothing defined yet. But I think like the future is gonna be more interconnected. Like I can imagine uh, perhaps having something with the Dreambox, like accessing their API and sending your creations to their service, and then you have some ways that you can print it. But I also think like that's gonna happen with Unity or Blender or some kind of plugin or
Unity would
some
be
kind
so
of way
cool.
to just like connect it. What?
Oh, just saying Unity would be so cool. I'm just imagining to be able to like sit in the staging environment and be able to like toggle textures and toggle background images and toggle HDRIs like for an environment would just be like groundbreaking.
Yeah, I think that might happen. We're still working the details,
Yeah,
but
it's a lot
yeah,
of
something that we have in mind.
Speaking worlds into existence. Let's go.
let's
Nice.
go. Yeah. I feel like these chats too are gonna. I mean, like, hey, there's a lot of listeners here. There's gonna be product ideas popping up in here. So I think these are great kind of testing grounds for new ideas as well.
Yeah, that's a good
New
point. Like
tools.
Robert said last week, how people in the room are the ones that are going to be making a difference in all this new technology
Yeah, it's
and
just
figuring out ways to
accessibility
use it.
is so much
Oh,
increased. Yeah.
Do we
awesome.
do we need a pitch your collab opportunity space? Because I'm
I
feeling
love that.
that. That would be so sick.
That's awesome.
Okay, so I am still going around. I'm trying to get Aaron the mic in a second. Oh, you got it. Looks like he might have it. Okay, no, I'm still going to add that. So if anybody wants to add anything to that, I'm going to try to get him mic'd up.
Hey AP, I know you said that you had a topic you wanted to jump in on. Maybe now's a good time to pivot over there.
Yeah, I just really wanted to really quickly discuss some of the open source, what's been going on over there in the open source community. So really, like the past 2 weeks, it's kind of been like a LoRa craze, a new type of training, a new type of method to train models. But recently, like I think as of this past week and the week before, um, Bilawal mentioned it. It's called ControlNet, right? And so ControlNet it was open sourced. It's kind of been changing the game in a lot of different ways, more than one. Like an example is ControlNet Video. You can like restylize videos or even get a key like frame and then take that into EBSynth, and it's just a lot of craziness there. I've also seen somebody retexture logos. Let me go ahead and pin that up. I think that was probably one of the very cool things I've seen as well. Also, too, like Leonardo, they mentioned like poses, right? You could do poses with ControlNet. I think probably the best place to do it, if you're going to do it, is like Leonardo, though, because it's like ControlNet is a little difficult to use on Automatic 1111 or like Hugging Face. But yeah, like it has been an absolute craziness in terms of the explosion of new ideas. We've explored a little bit of it with Leighton Labs, and I showed Matt like a little preview of what's coming, but yeah, it's pretty crazy, and Bilal, you mentioned it, but I would love to have a conversation about what people think can be possible with this. It's really crazy stuff.
Yeah, ControlNet's really been blowing me away lately. For me, when it comes to Stable Diffusion, it's been an absolute game changer because it went from being able to kind of roughly get an image sort of what you want to now if I have a vision in my head of what I want this image to look like, I could make that exact image, right? Like it's when it comes to YouTube, it just completely changed my YouTube thumbnail game. Right now, I can go and find other YouTube thumbnails that look like they're performing well, pull them into ControlNet and say, make me a thumbnail that looks similar to this, basically. Or I can go and if there's an expression that I want to have on my face, or I want to be pointing in a certain direction, I could go and find an image online of somebody pointing in that direction, upload it into ControlNet, and then, using my Dream Booth trained likeness inside of Stable Diffusion, I could make an AI version of myself in that exact same pose. And that has just been, it's a game changer. It's like now with AI, we can literally put whatever vision we have into an image and get the exact image that we're looking for. So, and I think it was AP who pointed me to all that stuff. I mean, you and I, we've been having quite a bit of chats in the DMs behind the scene, and it's like every day we're nerding out and passing each other cool new stuff that we're seeing. But ControlNet is, the biggest leap in Stable Diffusion in quite a while, and I'm excited to see what people do with it. And now that we're starting to see ControlNet in video, and I know Stoke Builder there was mentioning that it's something that they're looking into as well for video, and it's such a game changer. I'm excited to have this discussion and see what others are seeing from it and what other plans there are with it.
Sorry, do you guys mind giving I'm looking at the page on GitHub for it, and it says neural network structure to control diffusion models by adding extra conditions. But like, what's a use case? Like, can you just break it down into like something super simple? Like, what can you do now that you weren't able to? It gives you extra control, but like specifically how?
So basically with ControlNet, there's a bunch of different models that you can use with ControlNet. So for example, there's one called ControlNet Pose, where I can upload an image and then it detects the pose that the person was in the image. And then I can have it generate a prompt, and then it will model that exact same pose from the initial image that I uploaded. So that's one of them. There's another one called Depth, where it'll look at the initial image that you upload and then sort of do a depth map of it. And the stuff that's closer to the camera will come out lighter. The stuff that's further away from the camera will come out darker. And it will map that depth map onto whatever image you generate. And that's just two of the models. There's also another model called Scribble, where you can sort of hand draw something and then upload that hand-drawn image into Stable Diffusion, run the ControlNet model for Scribble, and it will try to draw a realistic image combining your scribble and whatever prompt you give it. So those are just three examples, but I think there's something like 10 different ControlNet models, and I haven't even played with all of them myself.
That's mind-blowing.
I don't know if that clarifies it or not, or if I made it more confusing.
It does. It does. Because like I worked on video AI for a while, and it's just like video AI is so much harder than image. It's just like having that control, like just detecting a pose and motion is just, it's not easy. So I'm very impressed.
Yeah, and then yesterday, AP pointed me to now they're doing ControlNet with video, where you can actually upload a whole video, and it will look at that video as the reference. So you upload a video, give it a prompt, and then it will try to make your prompt using the video as reference, and then output a video following the prompt combined with your reference for context. So it's getting crazier and crazier by the day. I mean, the pace at which we're seeing these things happen is just mind-blowing. Every day I wake up and I'm blown away by something new.
Love it. Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to that, I can't wait till Matt, like, when are your YouTube videos are just going to be your completely synthesized avatar, and you don't even just set up your lighting or anything like that, it's just doing it for you. I literally can't wait. And just to build on the ControlNet excitement, I think, like, the key point is text is such a goddamn fickle way to describe the composition of a complex scene, right? There's so much you need to encapsulate into this thing, and people are that's why it's creating this whole like line of prompt engineering. And I think this is an interesting way, like in hindsight looking back, this seems obvious, right? Like, and perhaps tying to Natalia's point, like about pose, it's like, yeah, text image is awesome, but we have had these like domain specific, computer vision models for these like specific tasks, right? Like monocular depth estimation, pose estimation, normal map estimation, edge map detection. And now we can finally exploit all of that awesomeness that already exists to, essentially condition the diffusion process. And that's so freaking exciting to me, because I almost wonder if artists that would feel like, hey, like my craft is gone. Like I have to type in a text prompt. Why did I learn how to use like a Wacom tablet and Photoshop for so long? Now, instead they can be like, yo, I just like tell the AI what I want in this higher bandwidth like method to describe something. Like maybe it's photos today's video tomorrow. I know we're doing a bunch of hacky stuff with Ebsynth, but the moment it starts exploiting temporal data too, probably similar to what Gen 1 is doing, holy crap. I think like we're going to have virtual mat videos. Like, I don't know, maybe later this year. I don't know. I'm curious if folks, how folks see like video to video and all that stuff evolving too, thanks to ControlNet.
I actually think that's a lot closer than most people even realize. I mean, there's tools out there right now that are already doing that. I was messing around with one called Be Human the other day, where you can basically feed it a video of you speaking, and then you can go back in and it will transcribe the video that you uploaded into their system. And then just like Descript, you can go and say, all right, this word, I want to replace it with this word. And then you can literally upload a spreadsheet of, let's say, 100 different words. It'll spit out 100 different videos and recreate that same video, but replace that one word that you wanted to replace in every single video. And that's just one example. There's tools like Synthesia and Movio and DID that do that kind of stuff as well, where you can upload an image of your face, plug in an audio file or a text transcript of something, and it will animate that video and that face to talk like you. So, I mean, that stuff is it's already here. I mean, it's not super convincing yet, but it's already here.
There are some, I'm just going to add to that, Matt. There are some more convincing that takes a bit more training. I have a friend that runs Peel, a mobile phone case company, and they did an experiment where they did, I think, 15,000 personalized videos, where there would be like a 60-second video sent with all the orders, and the initial 15 words would be different for all the 15,000 videos. And that was really high quality, but it also took more training. It wasn't like 2 minutes in a prompt. It was more like, uploaded like 1 hour of source material, and then they generated everything on some GPU farms. But I mean, this stuff is getting more and more accessible. And like everyone keeps saying, like we're measuring this in weeks rather than months or years. So it's hard to tell. Like whatever we say won't age very well, I think, in terms of where we will be in a year or two.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting as well because, as was mentioned previously, a lot of the times, the diffusion models diffusion models are the way that, the images are generated. It kind of just did whatever it thought based on, the text that it was given. And so recently with the Zarya Dawn, I'm not sure if anybody was keeping up with that, but there was a big copyright case that went on. And essentially what the Copyright Office found was the text could be copyrighted, the placement of the images could be copyrighted, essentially everything that was done by the human, except the images. That the copyright could not be enforced on that because it was purely like AI generated. So now that line becomes very blurred, but they did leave it like open, right? Like it was just saying because AI purely did it. So like if you could do like some type of manipulation, right, where there's like human input, maybe you could then copyright it, right? But that line is blurred now with ControlNet, right? Because potentially you could, I'm not a really good artist. I could draw like a stick figure running, right? And then now I run that through ControlNet or, maybe one of the tools that Leonardo has, and then I'm going to have like a scene of, a character action figure running, right? Can I now copyright that, right? So then that becomes a whole new conversation because my human input was involved in there, right? It wasn't just text, it was like me actually drawing. So like the implications behind ControlNet, I mean, it's pretty insane. Like it goes beyond video, it goes into products, goes into logos, right? Like advertisement, I think. Maybe I'm just too overhyped and like very much so blinded by the moment, but I think it's going to influence, potentially copyright as well, right? It's pretty insane. And again, measuring this stuff in days, it's crazy, but you just have to roll with the marathon, right? But yeah, insane stuff.
Yeah, I think what's going on with the copyright is really, really interesting because, if there's going to be a battle over this. I think there's going to be a big sort of back and forth of how this is perceived because, so what you're telling me right now is that if Marvel decided I'm going to go create a new comic book character and I'm going to put this is my vision of the comic book character. I'm going to map it out and I'm going to plug it into Midjourney, and then Midjourney gives me this image of this comic book character. And then I go and write an entire story around this comic book character. The story is copyrightable, but that character that I created, anybody can go and use it for whatever they want. I don't own that IP. And to me, that seems very bizarre. Like, to me, if my thought process, my imagination, my prompting went into that, and I sort of this IP came from my brain. Yes, the AI sort of filled in the gaps for me, but that thing came from my brain. I feel like that should be my IP, especially if I create the story, the lore, the everything else that goes around it. But with this recent copyright case, they're basically saying, no, that's not the case. Yes, the story's copyright, but any of the images that you created, even though they were based on your prompts, those can't be copyrighted. And so, to me, that doesn't seem right, but I can definitely see both sides of the coin. So I definitely think there's a really interesting discussion here.
Yeah, can I add my 2 cents to this? I think like these types of issues, obviously the Supreme Court gets a lot of stuff wrong, but I feel like this one is more of a more of a deeper education thing, and I think a lot of AI people in the community need to be lobbying lawmakers and really educating people on what this actually is, because the core of copyrights is you need to have an original work of authorship, right? There needs to be a moment of creativity that causes you to create something that you can embody in art, in a digital file, in a video, or whatever that may be. And that's literally prompting, right? Like, you're literally trying to manipulate this thing to manipulate this paintbrush to create something. And so I think there's some there's some concern from the case, but they left it open because I think this is an issue that sooner or later the Supreme Court has to deal with. And I'm kind of hopeful that they're not idiots, and I think like once you actually dig into the technology, it's pretty obvious that there's creativity involved. So maybe that's too optimistic, but that's my take.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of very interesting cases, and I wonder how far it'll go. I wonder how long that would stand. The more with different scenarios, it seems like that was kind of broad for you don't own the prompt, but who does? So I didn't quite get that. I don't know if anybody understands that part, or if they can explain that. If you can copyright the story and the words, but who can copyright? Is the image just out there? If it can't be every artist that had stuff on the internet, I don't understand that part. If anybody knows, I'd love to hear that.
I think that's kind of the gray area at the moment, to be honest. I think that's what's sort of everybody's trying to determine. The ruling was essentially that the art, if it was generated with AI, is not copyrightable, right? But it doesn't really take into account the creativity that went into the prompting. And to me, it's really interesting because there's sites out there, there's services out there where you can go and sell your prompts. If I go and buy a prompt from one of those services, does that mean I could go and resell it because that isn't copyrightable? Like, there's such a gray area to me right now. I don't know if anybody else here has more insight on it, but to me, it's very gray at the moment, and I think it's going to take a while to really iron it all out.
So I don't know if you guys remember how Fortnite started copying a lot of the dance moves, and one of the biggest problems was that those moves by themselves cannot be copyrighted. Like the Snoop Dogg kind of dance that he was doing, and then you can just like copy that and put it on a game, and nobody can actually like say, hey, yeah, but Snoop Dogg created that move. Yeah, sure he did, but that's just like a small piece of a whole choreography. So you can, as far as I know, you can like copyright a bigger, like kind of dancing moves and like a whole choreography, but just like a small move, you cannot do it. So I think something along those lines can happen with the prompts, right? So you can create some prompts, but is the prompt actually gonna give you um, the same result over and over and over, or is that just part of a larger thing? I think that's when we're gonna have the big discussions, and it's gonna be quite interesting to see. Just like Builder of Stoke was talking about, the Supreme Court is gonna have it quite of a job trying to decide exactly what is copywriting, what can you copyright and what you can't. And yeah, I expect a lot of battles in the next couple of years because this is gonna get wild. Like do you also own the stuff that ChatGPT created for you, even if you didn't write it, just because you type a prompt? Like, that kind of stuff is kind of hard to. It's like a gray line.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because they could go that deep with it. Angie, did you have some? You wanted to say something?
Actually, yeah. I'm in some of the artist communities, and it seems like one of the biggest issues right now, especially with copyright, is that AI isn't just like learning styles. It's actually pulling in with images. It's pulling in small bits of people's actual copyrighted work, and in the writing, it's doing the same. It's pulling in bits of people's actual copyrighted writing. And so I think that may be a big part of the legal issues right now. If we could start training them with like Creative Commons images and writing, I wonder if uh, the legal issues would be much easier to solve at that point.
I just want to quickly add a little bit of something. So I think, Angie, you're spot on. I think there's, the training part where you use people's work, which in some cases is actually copyrighted and, has been used by some of the image generators to train. And actually, there's an interesting precedent here. Shutterstock recently announced that they're going to pay artists if their images are used for training. And then they're also going to pay them if somehow, and I don't know how they figure this out, but like if the inference and the artwork that was generated was somehow done from I guess the training set that they had contributed to. So there's some precedent to it. But I think long story short, I agree with everyone. It's going to take a while. It may be 5 years, 10 years. It's going to be fought out. There's so much gray area. And it's kind of similar to what happened with YouTube. They had copyright issues and they were considered a liability, and like they didn't, it was unclear if they were going to be ever a business, but that did get figured out, and it will get figured out in this case. It's just interesting what, what it's going to look like, and specifically what is it going to mean for artists who contribute training data as one, and then two, for people who create stuff and really spend time in the creative process working with AI to come up with novel products.
Go ahead, AP.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, technically too, it's really weird because let's say, uh, hopefully y'all can follow along, but hopefully I don't go too much into the technical side. But okay, so like, let's say you're all using like Stable Diffusion 1.5, right? If you're all using, or like everybody's using Stable Diffusion 1.5, if I get the same prompt and the same seed and like give you the same like sampling steps, sampler that I used, all that stuff, right? Um, you could theoretically replicate a very similar image, if not like the same image that I generated with Stable Diffusion 1.5. So like it's really interesting, like the whole copyright discussion as well, because then it's like, do you own, because you copyrighted it, did you copyright that portion of latent space, right? So like, yeah, like I definitely agree. It's going to be like a very interesting issue, very complicated, a lot of nuance in there, and I'm not a IP rights lawyer, so or copyright lawyer, so like, yeah, it's definitely very, very interesting.
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer either, but AP, that is such a good point. Like, I think a lot of people don't know this or realize this, is that it is deterministic in that sense, right? If you put in the exact same prompt with the exact same seed, you're going to get pretty much the same image. And that, I think, like, there's this whole question of, was it okay for Stability or whatever company to train off the Lion 5B database, which was like intended for like research purposes, but then it created this model that's been used for pseudo commercial purposes. And so it's messy, right? Like, and you definitely, to go back to Natalia's point, I think that puts like a Shutterstock or even any, like, obviously search engine companies, anyone who has like some degree of provenance back to the source imagery, in a very good position to be able to create that sort of like, you feel very confident about the data set on which something was trained. And then you can, perhaps come up with, like, I love the YouTube analogy. Another one that's resonate, like content ID. We need the content ID equivalent, right? Similar example with, like, I think like the Kazaa or Napster days. What's the Spotify or iTunes model for that, right? Like, where all folks as a part of this value chain, get some equitable distribution. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And so it seems like, so what is sort of the practical takeaway for creators here? Like, I don't know if anyone can comment on that. It sounds like if you manipulate the imagery as after it comes out of the, like the more manipulation you do after it comes out of the text to whatever text to content model that you use, the more like claim you have over it as being something that you could, kind of like own. Could somebody comment on that?
Yeah, I could comment on that. I think one important distinction is that copyright infringement actually requires you to copy something, which kind of sounds silly, but it's actually like, for example, if I use the same prompts as you, use the same seed, but you can't actually prove that I actually did that on my own. That's actually a distinction, right? Um, like for example, if you produce the same software as someone else, but you actually didn't copy the code, you used a different way to get there, but the result was the same. Like, copyright infringement does require you to actually copy something. So I think it's true, yes, that you need a lot more creative steps in the process to sort of bolster that perception of creativity. But like, I guess what I would say is, like, don't copy someone, but that's like the same paradigm as before, right? Like, don't take someone's prompts, take the same seed and then claim it as your own. That's like shady in any world, not just AI.
Well, that's kind of confusing more, I think. It's like, if you can take the same seed but change the prompt, that's wild. That doesn't, oh man. I just want to say to several people, there's a lot of requests for the mic, and I have to apologize, but I can only have so many mics out at one time. So there's a lot of speakers that we have on the panel right now. And I was just trying to, especially depending on this conversation, just to make sure. And if I don't know you, I apologize. I don't recognize who you are or know exactly what you were going to talk about. But for now, I apologize. I was just trying to, I've been pulling mics and giving them to other people to get other people into the conversation. But please type in your questions or comments into the chat, and any links or anything like that. Again, feel free to share any kind of resources or anything like that, and the questions, because I'm trying to go through the comments some too and see if I can find pull out some questions if I can't get to you. But let me see. I have to give somebody back the mic. Aaron, I didn't get to hear him yet, but Linus, were you about to say something?
Yeah, I just want to place with Nick, who's in the audience. Nick St. Pierre. He's been doing some amazing work, and I would just like to give him the opportunity to speak a bit here as well, because
Okay.
he's been exploring a lot in Midjourney and putting out some real good content there. So you can swap me with him for a while. It's
No
fine.
problem. Thank you, because I think I've seen your work, Nick. Hold on one second. I'm trying to get it to you.
Also, I can step down. I just wanted to make one last comment for like artists and stuff. Like, all right, so there's a whole Shutterstock thing, right? But I wouldn't really trust them because, like, at the end of the day, like, once they get your data and they get like the rights to say that they can use your data in the data set, like your images, then they're like golden, right? But like, if you're an artist and you have like a data set of like, portraits of landscapes or something like that data is extremely valuable because, like, especially as we move towards like models that only need like 100 images to be really solid or something like that, right? Like, that like original value of that artwork or like whatever it may be, like logos or whatever, it's going to become extremely more valuable, right? Like, I think we're going to enter an era where like you're going to have the compute, you're going to have the electricity, you're going to have all these like the inputs for the output, but you're going to need data, right? So like definitely, yeah, treat your data like it's gold. I think that's really important. Don't really like trust Shutterstock too much, or like, just always look out for yourself with your data. But yeah, I'll step down. Thank you for having this conversation.
No, thank you for bringing that up, and controlling that especially. But all this, yeah, that it's a very relevant conversation. So I do appreciate it, AP, for real. Nick, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't have really much to add at the moment. I'm just kind of listening. I'm definitely not one to speak on copyright law or anything like that. But yeah,
well, what are you working on? Or you could just talk about some of the things that you're doing, because I know I've seen your work, some of the art, but I have to, like, what are you enjoying the most right now with generative AI, and what are you looking forward to?
I mean, for me, it's kind of like I'm trying to approach it in like I would say I'm creating like a framework for myself, and I'm sharing this stuff publicly, but trying to break down imagery, depending on the imagery, into all of its various components and variables, and then like arranging them and testing them out against each other to see how like you can build a prompt that gives you consistent output and like strong coherence to the prompt. Like one of my more recent ones was with architecture. And I think that like the whole idea is like I look at it as like a prompt UI almost. Like if you can give people a framework and like a way of building into that framework, then I can hopefully like enable them to create more things and be more expressive and get more specific with their prompting. And I think that's something that's like really needed in this ecosystem right now, are like good UIs in general, especially for things like ControlNet and just like the Stable Diffusion ecosystem in general. Like I think there's a lot of people who want to play with these tools but don't have access or funds to the type of equipment that you need to do it, or they see a Google Colab notebook and they like freak out and think that their computer is going to explode. Like that's the majority of the population. And like I think on Twitter and in this little bubble, we see all of these cool videos and people who have like more technical backgrounds who are able to explore these things, and it can make people feel a little left behind. Like even myself being deep in this world, like I feel left behind just because I don't have a machine that can run ControlNet. So I'm just trying to take an approach and find like the easiest way in for most people to start being creative, which is why I've been focusing on Midjourney. But yeah, I'm curious if people know of like startups or folks who are starting to build like more intuitive UIs for working with things like Stable Diffusion and ControlNet, because I think it's a big opportunity, and I'm hoping that somebody is like on top of it. But if anybody knows, like, I'm definitely curious.
Yeah, I mean, what you're describing right there is actually what Leonardo is, and I know Midas could probably speak a little bit more into it, but Leonardo is built on top of Stable Diffusion with ControlNet built into it. They are adding the image to image, the pics to pic stuff, and all the various cool stuff that you could do with Stable Diffusion is getting added into Leonardo. But I'll probably give the mic to Midas because he's the guy for Leonardo.
Sorry, guys. I kind of spaced out for a brief moment because I was answering some messages. Can you tell me a little bit what's going on, Matt?
Yeah, so Nick was asking about, more accessible ways for people to use Stable Diffusion, because Stable Diffusion isn't accessible to the masses right now. You need to have a good computer. You need to have, you need to have knowledge of how to, pull stuff from GitHub, or you have to feel comfortable going and using Google Collabs, and all of that feels very inaccessible to the general public. So he was asking about what's out there that feels more accessible for people to dip their toes in the water with Stable Diffusion.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, just like you said, we're integrating a lot of the cool stuff that has been appearing, of course, like by respecting the different licenses and adapting it to whenever there's no license available. So in the case of ControlNet, yeah, we've just integrated that. We are integrating Instru Pix to Pix. We're integrating the Canvas tool, which is kind of like like the DALL-E version, but with our own additions and using Stable Diffusion. So yeah, what we're trying to do is make it available to like the normal user that has no experience, is, yeah, like you said, going to Google Colab and all this kind of stuff, and you can just use it through an UI UX, which I think that has been the one of the most the reason which we have grown so much in the past couple of days, because yeah, we've been getting a lot of messages saying, hey, this is like the easiest way to just use AI that doesn't has to do also like with Midjourney, which has to do with going into a Discord server and learning the prompt commands and everything that makes it a little bit more difficult for somebody, let's say like my mom, she doesn't know how to use Discord, but she has been able to use Leonardo because of the it's in a web app, and we're also gonna be creating. Well, it's already in the works an iOS app, so people can also just like download it on their iPhone, and then of course later on Android, and just download the application and be able to use all of this stuff in an easy way. So yeah, that's part of the plans and part of the roadmap that we have.
Midas, you should get Nick whitelisted for Leonardo if you're still having like a.
He actually did
Sure.
Oh,
yesterday.
great, perfect. That's great.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't had much of a chance to play around in there yet, so I haven't dug into the features, but now I obviously have to.
Yeah.
But
Let me know if
iOS
you need
and
anything.
having like a mobile app is critical, like super critical. So that's super exciting to hear. Yeah, there are a lot of problems with like having to have a Discord uh, for an even broader audience. So having a native app makes a lot of sense, and also just being able to click buttons and select options as opposed to like deleting the weird stuff that when I copy paste a prompt on mobile in Discord and try to like put it back in, it's just a total pain in the ass. So um, yeah, it's not much, right? It's like it's buttons and levers, but I think it also can get overwhelming. Like, how many steps do I need to diffuse this? Like, there needs to be, I think, visual references and help guides that explain, like I'm 5, what these things do and what they mean. And I would love to see people with better documentation, like even Midjourney, like their docs suck. Like they're the most basic, like minimal effort that you can put into docs, uh, and they don't provide a lot. And like there's a lot of research that even I'm doing and just testing that I'm sharing, and it's like this is the kind of stuff that just should be out there, from these companies. So hopefully you guys can assist on that front too, and helping educate people about the terminology and what these things do.
That's actually why I started writing online, was because I wanted to write tech docs, because I learned how to code, and I realized the average person can't figure out what's going on, and just trying to get the basic things, even installing something on your desktop, it was just a nightmare. Terminal and GitHub, oh my gosh. So everything, and there's just every little thing you do, there's such a need for regular people, plain language, to write so that anybody can feel like they can use that software in the program. Aaron, go ahead. I've been passing you around, and I wanted you to go ahead and get a chance. And then we have Marcos and Phil and Mutilator. I think I'm saying it incorrectly, but Aaron, could you talk a little bit about your product, which is really, really good? That background remover that's free, and it's very good. But please go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. No, appreciate it, Heather. And this is great, learning so much and absorbing everything. But love the conversation. I mean, I think the biggest thing that my premise was a great UX design experience that just makes it as easy as possible. And to be frank, like the barrier to entry is really low. There's people who are on the developer side who can just really get some of these front end quick pages set up that make ControlNet and a lot of these other models that are publicly available very accessible and very easy. So I was, I'd love photo, video, all that stuff. And I saw a model on Replicate that was just, background remover. And this was based off of like papers years ago, off like UNet architecture, image segmentation. Super interested in that. And really it just was, how can I make this as easy as possible for people to access? These models run on Replicate and Hugging Face, and pretty difficult to use if you don't know how to really work the things, and there's some language that gets confusing. But if you can just set up a front end page, a versatile site, deploy it, pop it open, and add the API in, like it just makes it so easy. So I saw many different things. Saw a background remover for pictures. There's like green screening for videos. So many different things. And I just got the domain and got the site and really just put those three together, and it makes it so easy and accessible for so many other people. So I think a lot of the inspiration came from, I know a lot of people in the design space, even like the video photography space, but they're not necessarily computer techies and know how to exactly GitHub terminal, all that great stuff. But if you can set up a page that makes it accessible, that's kind of what I did. And some of these models, Replicate, Hugging Face, they charge a little bit for usage, but I think the business model side can easily be displayed and accessible. You set up a site, maybe it charges you 1 cent, 2 cents to run every time, but you throw some ads on it, and suddenly this is a free accessible site for anyone, and you don't have to pay $30 a month for Adobe or Canva Pro or any of these things. So it's really great to kind of see the accessibility in the space, and these models on Replicate and Hugging Face. I've seen so many pop up. ControlNet, I just saw on Replicate, so I could set up another website in a matter of minutes, honestly, duplicating this page and just plugging it in with a different model, with a Pix-to-Pix, with a Stable Diffusion. But no, I just got the domain and kind of loved it. People loved it as well, and kind of glad it was a great use for a lot of people.
I was shocked at how quickly I just tried it within a minute or two, and I'm like, no way, this thing it removed the background that fast, and you even have 2 different views that you can, and then download the transparent copy. I mean, it was really good. It was very so I thought there must be a catch. Maybe there's going to be some kind of a price or a monthly subscription, but no, I mean that's an amazing app. So thank you for explaining how you did it and why. And the accessibility does make a big difference, because I'm not even going to bother if I see that you have to subscribe to something, set up an account, whatever. I won't really go through all that unless I really want to. So thank you that removing that layer, that pain point for users, and just making it so there's really no reason not to use it, as much as it's available. Thank you.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's kind of great to see how many things are open source and publicly available. And, even listening in on these conversations and hearing words being thrown around, like for the average person, it gets, scary. You're like, I have no idea what ControlNet even means. What does that even entail? But, being able to just set up a website and just say, okay, this is what it means. And you upload your picture. This is exactly what it's going to do. Throw in your prompt, and boom, like this is your result. As easy as like a Google search or anything else. Like I think that's the direction we're going, and it's kind of great to see the space in that area. So I'm glad to be, trying to be one of the contributors to help move the space towards that direction.
No, that's a good point, and you're making it available for everybody, because I don't really 100% know what ControlNet is, but just from listening to the conversation and realizing how many different things it touches, that is, that many different types of models and different capabilities. I've seen them individually, but I didn't know they were all linked. They were all the same type of starting from that. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Marcos, go ahead. You can. You've had your hand up for quite a while, and then Phil.
Thanks. How are you guys?
Good.
So when I was listening to like making things more accessible to the everyday Joe, I was thinking about like, would it be possible, for example, use speech recognition? For example, if I want to create like a very cool image of a car, and I want it to be like a very real image, I can just say, for example, in something like Leonardo or Midjourney, create me a photorealistic image of a car, and it will convert my speech to the proper prompts, the proper tokens that could be used to create the image. And this will allow, for example, like everyone else out there, doesn't need to know every single prompt to make that happen. And in this case, this feature will create everything that the user wants.
I actually have been thinking about this a lot lately, and there's actually someone who did a really cool experiment. I can't remember his name. I think it's something Ghost, but he had like
Aaron.
What is it?
I think his name is Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron NG.
Yeah, his handle is like something Ghost, if I'm remembering correctly. If somebody has it and wants to drop it in, but he created just a way for him to talk to his terminal essentially, and like summarize books, and he was just speaking with it. He's like, what did you think of this part, or give me a summary. And that was really cool. But like on the image generation side, I've been wondering, like, could a prompt could like a really good prompt become a product? Like, for example, you take something like the interior design type prompt, and it's very modular, and you can swap in different types of furniture, different color palettes, different things, and you'll get a consistent result. Like, is there a future where like individual prompts for specific things become essentially like the building blocks of a product? I don't know. I think it's kind of like an interesting thing to think about. In that case, like what is the value of a really good prompt in that case? Like I'm putting a lot of time and sharing things for free, and I'm going to continue to do so. I have no plans of like selling or monetizing my prompts or anything like that. I feel like the more people who have the information and can make cool stuff, the better. And that's why like I want to just give away all the information for free on YouTube. But yeah, I'm just curious if anybody has thoughts on that whole idea of like, are there products that are going to be built on top of prompts that make use of all these technologies?
So I got an interesting I got an interesting invite yesterday morning, or last night really, because I was on a big space with plenty of people in it, and there's a bunch of people that have been talking about precursors. So you know how in coding we have precursors to do things. We write a little snippet and we get a bunch of things from it. And there is this product that's called the Red Squid, and Red Squid focuses on cinematic outputs. But instead of writing like a 90 or 120 parameter prompt for Midjourney, for example, you basically just say a building in the desert and a man in front of it, and then Red Squid will run through its model and its fine tuning, and it will output like a 90 or 100 and something parameter prompt, and the output is absolutely incredible. So just what they've been doing with Red Squid basically removes the need to learn to prompt. Like, you don't need to, and I think this has been the thing all along. Like, prompt engineering shouldn't be a thing because it's a barrier to entry. Like, if you have to learn to talk AI in a very specific way, and all the models have different ways of talking to them, then it becomes a barrier of entry. And I think what we're doing now is just remove all possible barriers. And I think what you're speaking to as well, and other people have said as well, like some of these words that we're throwing around, they're alien to 99.9% of the population or even more. So, like, reducing the needs to learn a bunch of new things just to be able to interface with AI, I think will be extremely important. And to your point there, can prompt become a product? I think we will see products around that will remove the abstraction of prompts. Prompts might still run the very bottom layer, the conversation with the models. Think of it almost as in computer language, like your very, very bottom layer of code. And that might change, might stay the same. But the top of the UX layer where you and me will interface, whether that's through voice, as someone just mentioned, sorry, I lost the name, that could be then, transcribed using Whisper or something else in real time. But ultimately, like the communication will be in text, but whatever we do on the top layer could be minimized to very few input words, either written or spoken. I'll share a link to Red Squid so you guys can have a look at that as well.
I would love to. Yeah, that sounds really cool. I would love to get that as well. I also love your point. I think even if it's a simple prompt, even like, I don't know, like a purple elephant, Linus, they're gonna add these user interfaces will probably add, like you said, another 80 words to that red or like purple elephant to get the absolute best result from that. Like you said, the base layer of code that you don't see behind the scenes. So yeah, I think that's really interesting. I also love the idea of the text, the spoken stuff, and also the latency too, because I know a lot of people are talking about NPCs and games and stuff like that. Of like, and that will work, but if you've talked with ChatGPT, it takes a while for it to think and get back to you. So that latency is also interesting as well.
Yeah, just building on this, I love this conversation. What Linus, Nick, and even Carbon, what you're saying. The thing I keep wishing to make this stuff intuitive is like, I don't mind the chat interface. Honestly, I don't even mind Discord too much. And like, I'm a old millennial with back pain, and have no idea what the hell Discord is. And, I've only really figured it out because of Midjourney, to be honest. But I want like something like a multimodal, like Chat GPT style interface where you're like, hey, here's the concept I'm thinking about. Give me some ideas. Okay, here's some concepts we could make.
I
Cool.
love that.
I like these. Can you please send these to text to image? Boom. Here are the images. And then you can talk again, like to keep it about different modalities. Let's like, like exploit all the other cool stuff that's happening in like, like perception and like machine vision and understanding. So I can say, I want these aspects of this like image, like maybe the entities or some like aesthetic qualities and these aspects of these images, almost like you would with a real artist. And then it sort of does that for you. I feel like that would be so freaking cool. And I'm curious if folks have thought about that and if anyone's building something like that.
Uh, I've tested this out quite a few times, just using Chat GPT and to create tables essentially and output them as prompts. So like I split up the prompt into all of its components and then request 10 rows of data for that, and then I ask it to string it together in the form of the prompt for me, and it works like surprisingly well. Like it takes some tinkering and messing around with, um, but yeah, like you can totally do that right now. Like uh, again, it's just the language structure, right? It's just the way that you're piecing these things together. You have different variables and components, and you can swap out one adjective with 100 different adjectives and see what it does. Um, but yeah, like that stuff's definitely possible right now. But yeah, like that's a product, right? Like a prompt building product can be that. One thing on like the red squid thing, and I don't know if they're doing this, but like personally, I try to stay away from using references to like a specific film or director or photographer or artist in my prompts very intentionally. Like I don't want to necessarily replicate a style. I'd rather like interpret the composition and sort of direct it with the language that would be used for that type of shot. And does Red Squid like show you all of the parameters that they include in the prompt, or is that abstracted away? I'm just curious.
They show you. So I'll just share it up there in the blob, top of the thing, from JVD. He should be on this as well. Actually, he's a very talented guy, operating out of Amsterdam, I think. Um, so they actually, when you do the prompt, it's very weird because the interface is also in Discord. You'll do the prompt, your short prompt, and then it will output the large prompt, and it will run that with Midjourney to get your image. And they're doing what you're saying, Nick. So they're trying to also avoid um, naming specific directors or specific creators. There are sometimes, depending on what you want, that they might add actors because they might want to use actual actors in the scenes. So they might say Robert De Niro or Sean Penn, but they're not using them to take any specific styles. It's just placing a specific actor in the scene. And again, they're heavily focused on cinematic cinematography, so images that looks like they're produced by Hollywood, essentially. But I can see this happening for all the verticals, essentially. Like the stuff that you've been doing, Nick, the last few days, especially the one you did with interior, and also your kind of like approach to additive prompting. And I think this is where we'll see the next wave of kind of like breakthroughs in terms of how we prompt is probably going to be in this realm, where additive prompting and in using like descriptive words and not trying to replicate specific styles. Because also I think we'll move away from that because the initial kind of like hype of just recreating other artist works, it's just a hype. Like no one really, I don't want to create work that's made by Picasso. Like you can spot it straight away. That's a Picasso. Like yeah, it's cool, but like it's like style transfer. When we got style transfer a few years ago, everyone was doing that, and it's just like that's cool. But like I won't do any original work with that. Maybe if it's for a commercial, maybe it's for someone else, and they explicitly want something like that. Otherwise, for the big chunk of people, no one really is out there to copy known artists. I don't think that's the case.
Phil, did you get to speak? I'm sorry, I was trying to rearrange the mics. Did you?
No, I hadn't. I hadn't
Oh,
get
okay.
gotten to speak.
Thank you. Please go ahead, and then I think Ruben DSNR, and I'm still trying to rotate the mics around. I'm sorry, guys, but go ahead, Phil. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Also, hi, Linus and Nick. Love seeing you here. We've directed a few times already. So I wanted to touch on what we talked a bit earlier regarding copyright and like basically creating original work. And I'm first a photographer before I was jumping on AI stuff. And there's a similar thing where like if you take one of the big places in the world, such as so I'm in Canada, and there's Lake Louise, which is a very, very famous lake up in Alberta. And due to the fact that it's a national park, so the access is limited by what the park lets you go. So basically, usually photographers have the same viewpoints to take basically the same picture or a very similar perspective. And so when we talk about, if you use the same prompt and you get a similar image or the exact same image, that can happen in photography as well. And usually the distinction will either be in the editing itself, whether you make it, colder or warmer or whatever, how you edit it, or just how you present it. So I wanted to just put that it's not a new problem necessarily. It happens and will still happen. Same thing when we think about, and I'm sure a lot of people here have seen that tweet because it goes viral every now and then, of I forgot the name of the filmmaker, but it was a filmmaker who used basically anime frames and scenes and made it so into a movie scene, and it was inspired by Ghibli movies. And so inspiration and remixes are going to happen either in AI or everywhere else. I think one of the good ways to do that and not be problematic is what I've seen Linus does a lot, which is and Nick too, which is picking a cohesive theme or a building block. I think one of the great one that Linus here did was the bonsais. It's a simple idea that you can apply to your own imagination and what you want to actually do, but still it technically comes from the same thing. But you can still say something, you're in something different. So I think that was really cool. I think that's still there are still ways, and we shouldn't be too scared about that whole thing of copying. And something as someone else here said, which is that you need to actually copy for it to be infringement. So I think it's a big issue regarding when it comes to monetization, but when it comes to just creation for now, which I think we still are in that early phase of exploration, we're going to be okay. The other thing that I wanted to touch was when we said about this making things more accessible. It's such a big part of it because for me, and I think it's one of the things I've talked to other photographers who've used AI. One of the ways we use it is because when we're trying to do photography, a lot of people have visions, and we're going to see the shot in our head, and we're able to have an actual description. And the challenge of photography is figuring out how the fuck do I recreate this in real life. When with AI stuff, well, I can get to that at least I would say 0.8 of the idea a lot faster, and I can iterate and make it better and either use that to try then to recreate it, but it lets us get faster to an end result, or at least a partial end result, and iterate a lot more. And a lot of people know that being creative is mostly editing. You create a huge volume of stuff and you remove the things that are irrelevant. So having tools like AI generation lets us remove the drafts and all this stuff that are ideas that are best kept to yourself, and then you can work on the stuff that actually is relevant and is something worthy of sharing. And I think that's just incredibly powerful. And I'm so glad I got to hear that Leonardo are building an app. That's freaking amazing. That's going to be really, really good. Because as someone with also ADHD, I have constant flows of ideas all the time, and being able to just input them and seeing either hey, this was a dumb idea, or there's something there, then I can just continue building a lot faster. And I think the last thing before I leave on the mic would be to follow on what Nick said, because we had a conversation around open source, and I really feel as
this moment in generative AI feels like early web, meaning that the open source nature of it and the almost either engineering, but it's not the right word, but it's more like, the old adage of Facebook of, move fast and break things, but in a non-problematic way. It really feels this way, as though if when we put together stuff that other people have seen and try to mix those, we have to be okay that like we have to do it together and not try to compete or try to monetize stuff that to me sometimes feels like should be open and instead share and build together. Um, it's the same thing as, because to me, there's just so much power to stuff of when you see someone who has thought differently. Like a good example for me in photography was the first time I've seen Korean dramas. The way they use light was incredibly different than what I was used to when we look at Western films. Uh, let's say if you compare the recent Batman, which is super dark, super grimy, and really high contrast, and it's beautiful. I love that style so much. But when I saw Korean movies and films, their light is always almost overexposed. It's such a different way of using, and I hadn't seen that ever. So being able to see the behind the scenes of these things and talking to people who have built some of these ideas in AI is so powerful. That's going to help everyone just move along faster.
I agree. Thank you so much for even saying that, because yeah, that's the thing. And all this sharing right alongside each other without competing, and just sharing these ideas and coming up with more use cases and different things to expect in the future is really important. I thank you. Ruben, you had your hand up for a little while. And Maheen, did you want to go after that? And Amar, please. Matter of fact, Ruben, Amar, and then Maheen, because Amar has to leave. And I appreciate everybody's patience so much. I appreciate it. I'm still trying to mix up the mics here. But go ahead, Ruben.
Yeah, appreciate it, Heather. I spent the time writing stuff down, so I'll try to be more efficient. Probably wasted it with that disclaimer. Here we go. Okay, number one, some predictions. Prediction number one, demand for large data sets will expand proportional to the scope and breadth of AI tooling, which of course is expanding rapidly, right? So as the tools get better, data sets that were previously too large or too complex to be useful to regular people will suddenly feel relatively more useful, which I suspect will put pressure on both InfoSec and OPSEC for anybody who has access to large data sets, both private and sort of public organizations. And that the side effect of that is going to mean larger data breaches more often, and that many of those repos are going to make it into public repositories like Pirate Bay and torrent sharing websites. I suspect that's inevitable. And there's an echo of 2014 where big data was a thing, sort of the buzzword at the time. But suddenly big data isn't big anymore, right? Because it's relative to the tooling that we have for it, right? So it should be interesting to see how that works out. But I think anybody in the security space is going to have their work cut out for them, because information is historically leaky. So that's the first thing. Secondly, with regards to copyright stuff, copyright is a form of law, which is a form of code, right? Harambe's Code of Laws, and as such is bound by a couple of principles which apply to all laws, with the exception of physical and mathematical laws. I learned this when I hung out with a bunch of lawyers for about 4 years, building a technology product that helped people participate in class actions. Legal systems old, but it works and it's useful. But it has a lot of challenges, right? As a body of code, there's no version control, there's no sysadmin. It's kind of a nightmare. But what I learned, and not an attorney again, legal information, not legal advice, for avoidance of doubt, is that in order for laws to work, right, just physically and practically work, there's a few things that need to happen. The first one is that you need to be able to define an infringement. If you cannot define an infringement, then it cannot be enforceable, right? And I think there's a lot of definition issues with the current frameworks, because we're dealing with things that we haven't dealt with before, in spirit and fact. That's the first thing. Secondly, Once you've defined an infringement, you need to be able to observe an infringement, right? If I jaywalk but nobody sees it, can't really do much about it, right? Third part is you need to be able to recognize it as a form of infringement. That is, even if you can see and observe the infringement, if you cannot recognize that infringement is happening because it's been altered in some way. A good example of this is when you go to Facebook and you might see a video of something that's clearly copyrighted material, but they've pitch shifted it or they've time shifted it, right? Which breaks the watermark, which those platforms might historically use to recognize or those assets. In this environment, because AI is working from large large language models, it becomes very, very difficult to watermark things in the traditional context. So things that used to be machine readable, it's a lot harder to have a specific approach to machine readability in this context, particularly when you get into merging data sets. That's a little bit complex, but enforcement is hard because not just for definition, but also observability and recognizability. The last thing before we start to get into like regular law stuff is attribution, which is if you cannot isolate the infringing party, who you taking to court, right? So, and so this is the thing with Pirate Bay, which, by the way, we should mention has broken copyright for 2 decades now, with pretty much every like major nation state trying to go after them, and they haven't really batted an eye, right? And this will lead up to the last point here soon. But I think if you cannot attribute the infringing action to an infringing party, you can't even get to the court system, right? And we haven't even talked about jurisdiction, both in terms of the nature of the law and the sort of geolocation of those relevant individuals and so on. So all of which is to say, I think copyright is going to break before AI synthesis tools slow down enough for us to be able to sort of grasp that in a traditional legal context, right? And that's been happening for a while, but I think that's going to. I think it's the sort of the illusion of copyright being material in any sort of really practical setting. I think that's going to shatter inside of 5 years, if not 3. That's my hot take on the internet. And the final thing is that somebody mentioned multimodal interfaces, which I think is really cool. And I'm really excited personally about not just sort of multimodal like data sets in terms of like this language or that language, but also things like audio, which can contextualize through the pitch of the individual or the tone of their voice, or other sort of contextual factors. I think it's also really interesting to, once you start factoring in the kind of data sets we have with geospatial, right? That is the geolocation of the individual might sort of contextualize the information that is being fed into this model. The sort of geolocation of the physical body parts of that person, right? And you've got things like sign language or gestural stuff, which we can pick up with cameras. I think that's really interesting in the data set because that's, to the extent that body language works, I think that that's a really interesting data set to observe and contextualize for communication and navigation purposes, right? And, even on a smaller level than that, eye tracking, right? I think that's super interesting. So having sort of multimodal sensor sort of input-output profiles, I think is really interesting. And I really don't think we've sort of tapped into that just yet. So those are the things that I had to contribute. Thanks for the time and attention.
Thank you. That was, thank you so much for writing the notes down. I appreciate it.
Yo, that density though. Oh my God, I loved it. And
Yeah.
yes, multimodal. Holy crap. Can we all just turn into James Cameron? Like, why do we need a $1,000,000,000 setup? I just want like a kid in like their bedroom to do just like orchestrating the same thing.
No, that's
so awesome.
It's something too, and even for medical, that would be interesting, because people who they lack movement, or limbs or whatever issue, to thinking about how you could use eyes, tracking the eyes, and things like that to be able to control something. That's amazing. Wow. Well, Amar has to leave in a few minutes, so go ahead, Amar, because you've used several different systems to make some pretty cool stuff. And then Maheen, I really appreciate it. DSNR after that, and I'm still working my way around. But thank you, everybody, for contributing and for being patient. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Heather. And again, amazing to be with this insane group of folks who just keep making amazing, inspiring things. So I'm just honored to be back. And I was excited when you said we're back for another Friday. So yeah, a little bit about me. The first time I kind of fell into all of this was with a children's book that went accidentally viral and certainly led to the chain reaction of, running into a few folks from here, Linus, Matt Wolf, and so on, Midas, and then following that, AP. I don't know if he's still here, but tweeted about an animated short with AI that was super fun, and that inspired my Batman short, which within a week ended up getting about 7 million views. So it was kind of crazy to see, it happen again, and it was a really fun experience. And then just this Monday, I was thinking, oh, it's President's Day. What could be a fun random project to launch there? And I was like, oh, what if I could interview a past president? And that led me to using 11 Labs and a bunch of voice AI tools to recreate an interview with someone. And that was also super fun, and it came out really nice. And again, I think it's so fun because there's just so many different forms of storytelling, right? You can publish a book, you can put out an animated short, you can create a podcast with an imaginary guest. The script was written by ChatGPT, the voice was recreated with 11 Labs. And I think when I was acting out the interview, my roommate was like, "What the hell is he doing? Like, who's he talking to?" But it was really fun to kind of bring that back to life. And so I think I'm just excited by these tools because there's so much we can do here to enable storytelling for anyone. And in particular, I love the conversation about the UX because I do believe that prompting isn't necessarily the most natural way to think about this, and you kind of have to wonder, like, where do I start? And I almost wish you could start with a recipe. For instance, I want to create a book. Click that, and then what are the characters? Your book needs characters. It needs a background. It needs a plot, right? All those elements that make up a book, and then the tool allows you to generate around those. I think that would be something that's really interesting. Or, for instance, what are all the elements that require you to make a good animated short or an interview? So I'd love to lead with like the elements of the story that you need to create, rather than leaving it up to you having to figure out what parameters to add and things like that, which I think is interesting. Final thing I'll add is just like a little nice surprise I got yesterday, which was a class at MIT's MBA school was studying the children's book. So it's really cool to see that this revolution that we're all a part of is spreading. And just excited to be here.
That was only within so many weeks, too, huh?
Yeah,
that's wild.
Things are moving so fast. Maheen, go ahead. Please go ahead and speak. Thank you, Amar.
Yeah,
Thank
I'll
you
go
so much.
next. Hi, Amar. It's been actually great to see your journey and how it's been kind of exploding, and there's like negative and positive reactions to all of it, which has been wild to see. But it's awesome to see you like continuing to innovate in that space despite both kinds of kind of like feedback, right? And that's really tough.
Thank you.
So I wanted to actually speak a little bit about myself. I'm Maheen. I've been working in the AR, VR, and AI space for about 8 years now. And I started working with AI about like 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago. So I have actually built a lot of voice-based experiences internally. I work at Meta at that time when I was working on those experiences. And the thing that I'll mention about voice-based or multimodal experiences is that there's a reason why it's not taking off. And that's because NLP is actually just really hard to do. The technology is just not quite there. Generative AI is in a really good place, and that's why we're seeing all these like use cases kind of pop off, and like people make all these experiences. But even if you think about things like Alexa or Google Home, right? Like, how many times does it successfully understand what you're actually trying to ask of it? And so we're not quite there yet, but we're just a few years away from the industry taking it very seriously to start building NLP models or natural language models that better understand what humans are trying to say. And in that, there's a lot of complexities, right? There's different languages. One of the apps that I was building, so one of the things that I was really passionate about was how can we enable everyone to create? And enabling everyone to create requires not enabling experiences that, you know, you have to think about where you type in certain prompts and then you have to be really careful about what you're typing. Those kinds of experiences, if you want to enable everyone to create, language is the best way, where you just speak what's on your mind and then AI creates it, right? So that's the ultimate thing that we're all working towards. And so we built a model called AI Storytime, where you can just kind of like tell a story and AI will create that story. And what ended up happening was that I was able to use that demo super easily because, as you can tell, I'm like speaking very slowly and I speak a little clearly. But when we put that thing in front of kids, obviously it didn't work as well. But there were a few things that they were able to control, like saying things like, oh, the monster was purple or the monster was pink. And so we can understand those kinds of things. So very simple language we can understand. What we ended up doing instead was enabling more generative AI stuff. So we enabled a tool where anyone can draw a sketch or a drawing and AI will animate it. But that being said, again, we're like a few years away from having voice as an input to generate content as easily. But hopefully we'll get there soon. And I hope that the industry starts to take NLP quite seriously and starts building those models that are required to get it there.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you. Linus, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, what's your experience with Whisper from OpenAI, given they foray into natural language processing? Have you played anything with it?
I have not used Whisper. So the experiences that I'm mentioning were built around in 2020. So I guess it's been a while, and Whisper might have come out after that. Is that correct?
Yeah, Whisper is still kind of in a closed environment, and I guess people, as yourself, with your experience, might have access to it. I'm on the side where I've played with it, but not through my own API case. Been fortunate to try it with a bunch of companies that I've been working with.
I work with research models more directly. Researchers more directly that are building model. Yeah. In-house research models, and we just always ran into a wall with it.
Yeah, it feels like, I must say, like Whisper feels like it could be. I don't know if anyone here knows about the company Speak.com. It's a language learning platform, and there are. I think they got an investment last year from OpenAI fund, 35 million or something in that realm. And their entire suite is running on Whisper and GPT 3.5. Very interesting tech, really, because it feels like they solved this issue that you're describing, running into that wall of not really getting the output that you want. So it will be interesting to see what happens this year.
Thank you. I know DSNR. Did you get the? Oh, you got the mic back. I was trying to. And Maheen, thank you so much for explaining that. I'm like sitting there thinking about that and writing some notes down myself. DSNR, go ahead. You have an app that's relevant to some of the things we were talking about, right?
Yeah, thank you guys. This has been an awesome space. So definitely learned a lot, and I'm glad that naturally you guys started describing a lot of what we were working on with the prompt interface and all that. It seems like there's definitely a demand in the space. Hopefully we can help the community out. Yeah, I think how I discovered the idea of making this app is I realized if you already know what someone wants, you can kind of build an interface to, instead of having the user prompt, the GPT prompts the user to figure out preferences and things that I can suggest so that you can get the output. So if you already know they want to make an image or a video or something, you can be like, all right, give me a basic idea. You ask them questions, and then from there, all they have to do is press on buttons, and then figuring out the description, the style, the artistic medium, and even if they wanted to, I know some of you guys don't really like the artist inspiration side, but if they want to, they can have suggestions for that as well. So what we built is for now it's a Discord bot that pretty much they type in their basic idea, and then from there they get options that are buttons, and they just press on them, and in the end, they get a final prompt. They can copy and paste it wherever. But we do currently have Midjourney on our Discord. So we launched the beta yesterday, and we've had some awesome generations. And I think like we've seen some before and afters where we have basic ideas turn into some awesome prompts, and the before and afters are just awesome from the test that we saw yesterday. So if anyone wants access, just DM me and I'll send you the link for anyone here. And we'll probably be going public sometime in the next few days, but we just want to have some good tests and make sure that we have everything right before we go public. And
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, and if you
Yeah.
guys want to like see a
Please
little
make sure.
video, you can see on our page of like how it works. It's just buttons that pop up after you ask some questions, and it uses GPT to give suggestions.
That's awesome. Can you put that in? Is it in the comments in the chat? I'd
Yeah, I'll
appreciate if
put
you
that in
would
the
just drop
comments.
that in there, the link, and thank you
Yeah,
so
it's kind of a
much. Wow.
bad video though. It's kind of blurry, but you kind of can see how it works. But I can give anyone access. Just DM me.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. Or even for the example, if you put something, if you have anything, I mean, we're not judging.
Yeah.
It's just learning. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Wow. My goodness. Moodlier, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Moodlier.
Moodlier, thank you so much for your patience.
No worries.
Very
Thank you
good.
so much for having me. I've been learning a lot as well. So my name is Claire. I'm from Moodlier. It's my brand. I serve basically creative industry, a lot of photographers, videographers, designers, graphic designer, etc. So that's why I got into generative AI. I did a deep dive for the past 3 months. So a lot of the tools you guys mentioned I've already used it. So my question for you guys here today is, what is your take on for the future of the creative community and the creativity slash more on the commercial side? Because most of these generative image or video tools today are more for like ideations or first draft or conceptualizing some sort of ideas. It's not super final deliverable ready, but I'm sure will take some time to get there sooner than later. But with that being said, all these exciting tools are ControlNet and Gen 1 from Runway. Those tools are super democratizing, but at the same time it cuts off like the whole production crew. So what's your take on like for the people who are inside of this production crew, like what should they be like doing to be like future proofing themselves? Because it is not super bright for everybody who is inside of the creative community. It could be if they are embracing it, but overall I do feel like there's only a little smaller portion of the creative community are embracing these tools. I'm sure some of you guys probably have talked to some of these people, are senior designers or creative directors or art directors. But what about like the makeup artists, the models, or the crews? Like, what do you guys take on that part?
Hey guys, I could talk a little bit about sort of how this tech can integrate with creative studios. So for our production with Linkin Park, we paired with this amazing studio called Shibuya.xyz, which you guys should look up, by the way. One of the things that I realized was I had zero experience with AI before we sort of jumped in the picture. And what they were able to do was they basically found a way to work us in the workflow really seamlessly, where they would basically send us assets and tell us to run it through diffusion. And they would basically use their creative skills to basically composite some of these this footage into their general sort of creative direction. So I think it was an interesting experience for both sides of us, because we learned a lot about exactly this problem that you're talking about, which is, how do creatives who don't have experience in this actually weave this within their workflow? I would argue that it's actually not so challenging, because what creatives and people in studios have is a skill set that is really quite difficult for people to just pull out of the bag, right? They have an idea of what their vision is. They have an idea exactly how they want to edit it. And what the AI tools really give those people are options, right? You have incredible optionality with this tool. So instead of having to have your animator draw 30 different variations of the scene, you can have that at one click. But really, I think it actually puts the power in the creative's hands rather than the public perception that it actually takes away from them. I think the people in this community, the people in the space right now, if there's creatives that want to get to know them, they know more about this tech, like they should just work with people and the enthusiasts in this community, because I think the expertise that people have in this community can really be a huge like value add to any creative. The way we saw that production go through was like eye opening for all of us, because we did that all in 6 weeks, and it was certain animations that they wouldn't even have thought of, not let alone do in that amount of time. Meet more AI artists, meet more real artists, combine them together. It's like a powder keg when they put them together.
I love what you said. I actually watched that music video from Linkin Park. I was really amazed by how good it is. That's actually exactly the problem. Is there is a gap between like the people within the tech bubble who are embracing these tools, but the people who are like the true artists or like the creative community, they're just like a little bit falling behind. Like, how do we bridge these gaps in between? Like, how can we bring everybody in the same platform? Like, most of the people who are today speaking or listening are the people who are on Twitter within the tech bubble, but a lot of these artists on Instagram or other platforms. How do we bridge the gap?
I can. Oh, go ahead, Midas.
No, thanks. Yeah, so I just want to make 2 points here that perhaps can illustrate a little bit of what can happen or what may happen. The first one is when we were interviewing game developers to kind of like bridge this gap. We talked with the guys from The Sims. I don't know if you guys played the Sims game, which was one of the most successful games ever. And the one of the guys from that team was saying, like, hey, we had finished the like the game engine. We had finished a lot of the stuff, but we were about to release the game, and we didn't have like the main characters. Like, instead of the characters, we had a dark uh, box, because they were burned out of just like going back and creating different smaller assets, and all that took a lot of time for them, and it kind of burned the team. So we think that by having this kind of technology, artists can start focusing on larger things rather than the smaller details that usually can just like burn them out and kill their creativity, kill their willpower and anything. And the second part of what I want to include here is that right now, of course, AI is taking like a big step, and you can see it's all over the place. And you have all these guys that are just creating art, which are not artists, like they're not like native artists, I would say. But I think, or what I saw recently in a tweet, was that people should start learning how to use like other tools that already exist, because once the people that have been creating art pieces and know color theory and have like a wider education on like artist stuff, and they get a hang of the AI technology, what's going to happen is that a lot of people who are just like beginners, let's say myself, I'm not an artist, I don't know, like, I know how to prompt, but when I'm compared with a painter, with a drawer, somebody who has skills in Illustrator, in Photoshop, and they start to create other pieces of art, of course I'm going to be left behind. Even though I have access to the same technology, I'm not in that level of knowledge. So what I think is going to happen is that once the rest of the artists that already have all that experience, all that knowledge, get like access to all these tools, a lot of the people like me who has been creating some kind of art and has been playing with the prompts, of course I'm not going to be a match for them because they already have all that experience. They already know how to use Photoshop. They know about lightning. They know about different styles of art and whatever. So yeah, right now I have the advantage. Of course, I can just type in something and I'm going to have a great piece of art. But when yesterday I was talking with a good friend of mine who is an artist, and he has, he can actually draw stuff with sharpies, and he creates all this canvas and whatever. I was amazed. I can do all that stuff with an AI, but once he gets a hold of all this stuff, he's just gonna be 10 miles away from me. So I think that's what's gonna happen. And if we it kind of reflects back to what happened with ChatGPT. Like, I remember some article that was talking about how mathematicians and physicists and people in like the computer sciences, they weren't as excited as the guys from literature, like philosophers and all these kind of people who are very ingrained with the language, and they know how to actually create all these like prompts. They know how to play with the language. And when you start comparing their experiences that they had with ChatGPT, it was like very, very different from somebody who was a mathematician, and he was like, yeah, that's cool, but I don't know how to actually get this to do some of the stuff that I want to. I'd rather use my codes or my formulas. While the guys that were linguistics, people from the literature world and that's kind of stuff, they were able to create way more like deeper stuff because they knew how to talk to the computers. They knew how to use those words. I think that's gonna happen, and that's gonna be like the next step that we will have to solve in order to achieve a little bit more equality in this kind of areas. But you can see like artists right now, yeah, they're left behind, but in a couple of years, in a couple of months, we don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. And before I forget, Bali, I'm so sorry I forgot to pull you up here earlier. Since we're talking about accessibility and having these options available for more and more just regular everyday people, could you talk about Utopia and Unite, or the website, the platform?
Yes. Hi guys, my name is Body, and this is a Chinese name. If you cannot remember, you just remember Bollywood, like body. That's my name. And just answer the Claire's question: how do we make this AI to be used by everybody and commercialize them? Unite's company, we build a free app to let users to generate AI arts. Apart from that, we think, okay, the user generated art, so what are they going to do about that? So we also developed one hardware. It's a digital art frame. This digital art frame is different from traditional TV or monitor screen. They have kind of like matte finish. It's non-reflective. When they display the art, it's like real piece of art. You can see the brush stroke clearly. You can see the depth of the paint. So it's amazing product. So what we can do is we can bring this AI artist. After they generate the art, they can show in our art canvas. Of course, we also build this platform to mix between the real human artist and the AI artist together into a community, so everybody can benefit from this art created. This is still new, and we just developed a prototype for the both hardware and software. We will welcome you to try that, give us some feedback. Basically, this is we are on the way to commercialize that. So all these AI artists, creator, and including the traditional artists, everybody can benefit from that. So that's my platform. Hopefully, I can answer some questions from Claire as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for explaining that, because I just learned about it this morning, and I was just amazed. And I think I saw a video where somebody was showing how you could actually see the brush strokes on like a canvas painting and through one of the textura frames that you can order, like customize the size, like your own wall art that you can display digital art through with from your app from your platform, or like you said, anything you want to put up there, but for the ability to see like it looks like it's on canvas instead of a digital screen, that's amazing.
Thank you.
And the app, and you were saying that it's free, people can use it, and also too how the real artists, human artists that are actually using the platform more right now, and how it's going to be kind of a combination, and some of them also have NFTs, digital art as well. And it's just kind of like a thing where it's just more access to tools, and so that everybody has a chance to be able to create these things that are so beautiful and have such the potential to enrich the world. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for talking. If you could put that in the chat, if you put the link to that, I think people, once they see it and see the difference between the app, the Utopia, and the platform, and understand what we're talking about, that would probably definitely help. But I don't know how many people are familiar with it. It's a really cool idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
And did anybody have any questions for him? I wasn't sure. I don't want to cut anybody off. And Oxdev.
Well, I heard Utopia, right? And there's a few people making like a Utopia VR. I know I'm in VR, building in VR right now, and somebody has a Utopia VR app that they're doing.
It's actually Viewtopia with a V, like in Victor. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a little bit different. Oh, go ahead. Because you
okay,
had
but well, what I did want to say is I used ChatGPT in VR. So there's a VR chat app, and I'm thinking VR Chat GPT, where instead of like how the AI is now, like let's say it's Web 2 or 2D, if you bring that technology into the 3D environment, how would it be integrated, right? And so it'd be like, okay, great, you have ChatGPT in VR. So one thing I'm building upon that idea is I'm making a like a Bitcoin metaverse thing, but I'm just using AI. That's it.
Okay, so you're building a product right now with that, or is it something that you would just run locally for yourself?
And XR too. So because I'm trying to bridge the gap between VR, AR, and the tokenomics of, like, let's say Bitcoin or Ethereum.
So you're creating like a metaverse. Yeah, I'll start talking crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's already this
sandbox,
sandbox,
please. Okay, well, it sounds very interesting. If anybody has anything to add, please let me know. I can't really. I'll start kind of rambling there. So, but it sounds very interesting for sure. Man. Well, I guess we've been around the room, so I can just open up. Thank you all for coming. It's 5:30 almost, so we can. If people don't have a whole lot to say, I guess we did pretty good. We kept it under 3 hours today. So, man, this is such a good conversation. Thank you. Wow, this is weird. I'm like, wait, it's still light outside. But man, thank you all for coming so much. And you look around the room, see who these people are that are in here. If you notice them and you want to follow them, look at their content. Everybody has such valuable content here, and there's just so much we can add to the space. And of course, we're going to do it again next Friday. Thank you so much. I like the later time. It kind of worked out a little bit better. So hopefully we'll do that. And please, I'm trying to see what happens with my newsletter. I'd appreciate any support. And I promise I'll put as much stuff in there as possible to, entertain you and keep you informed. I like more visual. I'm not going to do as much with the news. So I'll let Matt, he's better on the YouTube and explaining all that. But please let me know if there's something you guys want me to talk about in there and pay attention for the design challenges. I appreciate all that. I do see, let me see, Finn popped in there. I'll hand you the mic, and Ruben, if you want to close it out with a couple words, and I'll just thank Taylor. Well, you can finish up. Anybody else from the panel that started out with us there want to say anything? Matt, Midas, Linus, Billawall, let me see, about Robert, anything? Let me see, Stoke Builder, let me know. Asher, put your hand up and just make a symbol there. Let me send these mics out. Finn, go ahead, and then we'll just kind of say goodbye. Go ahead. Thank you. Go ahead, Finn.
Hey, yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Just real quick, I love this AI space, and I just have a recommendation: do more of them. The community I'm from, we're about one stock ticker symbol, and we do it 24 hours a day, and there's always 500 people all the time, round the clock. So I would love if you guys could do, like 2 or 3 times a week. The space is so well run. I really appreciate what you do, Heather, and all the guests. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Finn. I appreciate that. I do feel like it needs to be a couple times a week. It's hard to get all the information in, and if you bear with me, I definitely would work towards that. So thank you. Yeah, we're learning so much every week, and then there's so much that happens every week. I really appreciate it because there's a lot of stuff going on out there in a lot of different spaces. You don't have to come in here and spend time, and I do appreciate, and it makes me feel like I'm really doing something. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
It could be
Go
like a 24-hour CNN AI coverage.
Yeah, we could do it in shifts. We could split it up. I might have to shift around for everybody.
Yeah, right.
I gotta sleep. I have to sleep sometime.
Or we could get an AI host just to keep it going. Heather, I had one quick message I wanted to close with, if that's okay.
Please.
Yeah, real quick. It's kind of an open call to everyone here. If you guys are builders yourself, digital or like physical, like if you can sew, if you have a craft that you want to bring to life, we are building out our builder marketplace. So please get in touch, which is really exciting. And even just to tie it back to like jobs and stuff, we're really all about enabling human to have jobs. It's a big belief and core belief of Dreambox. We're not trying to take it away. We're actually trying to create more opportunity. And 3D modeling is a huge one because if you're a ZBrush artist, you're going to have your hands full in the next few years because even really good image translation is still not going to be like game ready, Hollywood production ready. So really good use of that skill set. But yeah, we need 3D modelers for 3D printing and any kind of real world physical stuff. Come our way, join the Discord. We'd love to have you.
Thank you for mentioning that again. I forgot because that is significant because I'm even going to try to get some designs submitted for you because it's not just closed off for, you want humans that can actually put this stuff together and build it. And man, thank you. Make sure you say so. Did you put the link in the chat for Dreambox so people can see? And then
I'll drop it. I'll drop it in right now. It's a good call.
And in the Discord channel too. So if you want to put that in there for the community, and it is very nice, very well run. You guys are just doing a great job, and it's such a cool idea to have that. Thank you, people. Please pay attention to that and take advantage of their design competitions that they're going to have. That if you're the winners are going to be able to get their product created into a physical product, right? So please make sure, and then also there you could be in their marketplace, one of the designers and artists that work in the marketplace. Go ahead, Linus, please.
I just want to plug your Visually AI newsletter again. So I just shared it at the top of the space, and go to heatherbcooper.substack.com. We're 150 people in here, so that should be fairly easy to get a bunch of subscribers going there. So can be excited to see what you do with it. Thank you for hosting this space, and thank you everyone for listening once again this week. Been super excited to hear everyone's opinions and what they're working on and what they're sharing. This is a really nice run space as well. I think we have a good conversation, and there's a very high bar and a lot of really talented people in here. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Linus. Thank you, Steve. No, thank you so much. It's hard to, I'm not used to like plug in myself or something like that. And I hate, but I mean, I guess eventually I have to make a penny some kind of way or else I won't be able to keep hold these spaces. So I do appreciate it. And I want to start offering some courses and other things that to share knowledge. So I do appreciate everybody's support and just promoting this room so that we can all learn more and each other too. So we want to like, no, we're not competing here. We're all like doing things. We have products, we have websites, we have channels, and like Billawall, you have. I mean, you is it Billy FX? I think you have like a ridiculous amount of subscribers. Congratulations on your YouTube channel. That is something, and I hope that you put that video for the AI, the interior design in there. That was really something else. And it's like you just find out more about people from them coming in here. And Asher here is a TikTok star, and he's just, I mean, thank you so much for joining us late on a Friday. Asher is not talking today, but he's so talented, and I'm so grateful to have an opportunity to work with him. Chemosynthetic, I see you here. I just want to say what's up because she inspired me really, her designs to get into Midjourney and really try to make some beautiful things. So thank you. Please go visit her site, her account on Twitter, because she just has some fresh, fabulous designs, just amazing. And Vicky, hello, how are you doing today? Robert, thank you so much for hanging in here with us. And we didn't get to hear about holodecks today, but I still appreciate that you're here and you support these communities so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Taylor, did you want to say you can help close us out? And thank you all. Next Friday, I forget what the date is, but whatever next Friday is, we're going to do it again. And I'd appreciate the newsletter.
No, yeah, thank you so much, Heather. This would not be possible without you, your generous, sharing spirit of resources and knowledge for everyone in this AI space. So really hats off to you for making this happen. It's an amazing one. This is the second epic one we've done in a row, you guys. I mean, we've had some pretty amazing ones before this, but we've really, I think, been picking up some steam, and we definitely need to keep these going. So every Friday afternoon, I agree with you, Heather. I'm into this time slot. But I also pinned somewhere up at the top, we need to come up with a name for these Friday spaces. So feel free to weigh in. There's a poll up there if you want. Share this space also around with your friends if you found it valuable, because we explored such an expansive range of topics today, and as always, we're only scratching the surface. So appreciate you all so much. Hope everyone has a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Taylor. Thank you. And we're still doing the community building cohort. So next week, Taylor and Ash shop. So we'll be doing workshops and on different types of AI art or different things, just whatever. We're working with a lot, and I apologize because now my brain is fried a little bit. But we're doing a lot of things just because we want to expand on the community that we're building. It's free. Anybody can join. Everybody's welcome. And we want people to be able to share their experiences and resources and ideas. So thank you so much. And also Matt has the future tools. I know I'll be waiting for my newsletter today. And then also his show where he's every night out there showing us what's going on. Linus is up here every day, just all day. I don't know where you come up with it, but you have so much to offer. Thank you so much, Midas and Leonardo. Thank you for keeping us on top of everything. Carvin and Drayson, I appreciate you guys with Dreambox. And I don't know if Aaron's still here, but thank you all. Everybody keep following up with the products that you're working on and supporting each other. But thank you so much. And I apologize if I forgot anybody. Vali, thank you. But I guess I'll go ahead and say goodbye. So we'll extend it. But thank you all so much. See you next Friday.
Thanks so much. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Heather.
Heather.
Bye, guys.
Have a
Bye-bye.
great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Love you all.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
thank you so much. Bye, Molly.
Thank you.